welcome back to Drum Key. This is the podcast where we talk about everything drumming, drummers, and a little bit of drum industry. We are recording live to tape inside of our home away from home, drums, etc.
In beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
That's right, Shawn, in beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm Adam Steck, that's Shawn Groff, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. John Peifer.
Yes.
I've
been looking forward to it. You were the last holdout of the core staff here. You've done the shop talk sessions. We've had other, the teachers, Rick and Christy and Nanamacher, all do the shop talk sessions and also do the podcast. You were the last one of the, teachers, staff to actually come on and do the podcast. And I've been waiting for this for a long time because you always have a lot to say, and this should be a natural.
This is it. He might be a regular now. We might just get another microphone, just have him chiming in.
Yeah.
We talk all the time at the shop.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
Absolutely.
We talk about drums, we talk about life, we talk about everything. So
Sure do.
it's all good.
It's going to be a little bit of that today.
A little bit of everything. We are going to get started. We've got some segments that we're going to pop through real quick, and then we'll just dive into picking your brain a little bit.
Sure.
That's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So first, let's just weigh in on some drum habits, some drum gear with Crank It Up, Turn It Down. All right, Crank It Up, Turn It Down. Shawn does now realize that he has about 10 to 15 seconds to just get a pop out of me.
Yeah.
In between each segment, which is a dangerous thing. So if I come back and I'm just on the floor or someone has a bruise, someone has a black eye, you know that he definitely got through to me. No, but let's weigh in on some of these controversial drum habits. Get everyone's opinion. I literally have on my paper, get Shawn's opinion, because when we started, it was just me and you.
Right.
And I didn't even weigh in. I just asked the questions.
Sure, now we all get involved.
All right, guys. So if you dig it, you crank it up. You crank it up. This is better than a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Crank up the dial. Crank it up.
To 11.
To 11 if you really dig it. Or if you don't, turn it down. And that's okay.
Or in some cases, I crank it down if I'm really against it.
If he's really mad, you crank it down. If you really dig it, crank it up to 11.
I'm not mad.
But crank it up, turn it down. Here's the first one, guys. Burying the beater.
Ooh.
You're playing your kick drum. Burying that beater.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm going to say that it's a bad habit of mine to bury the beater. I tend to play heel up a lot, so I do bury the beater. But I'm going to have to turn it down because when you bury the beater, you don't get the resonation of the drum, and you want to let off that beater a little bit. You want to let off that pedal a little bit, and you want to strike the drum and then let that beater come off so it resonates. So I'm going to turn it down. I do have that bad habit of tending to bury the beater, especially if I'm playing some punk music. So that's just a bad habit of mine.
So you're saying that the little bit of sound that's kind of choked off.
Yeah,
when
it's
you
choked
do that,
off.
You don't like that.
Sure. No, I don't like that. No, it's not good.
Okay, John.
Turn it down.
But it can serve a purpose
Sure.
if you're really going for a specific sound out of the drum. Because with that technique, you can you're muffling the drum. More of a staccato effect could be taking place. But it's important to do them all. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I look at it that way because they serve a purpose in creating a sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
that's just something to experiment with. And it all comes from proper technique in building the ankle stroke. From there we build on more leg, more get up and go, more power coming from the leg and the muscles when we're really hitting hard. But in the beginning, when you're practicing early on, you want that ankle stroke. You want that control factor. And then when you got to step on it a little bit more, you still have that for control. But then you can bury the beater, you can be off the beater, you can play very loud, whatever the purpose is for the music.
Right.
That's pretty much it at that point.
Yeah, I was coming at it as a bad technique type of approach. Burying the beater is bad if that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
But totally what John is saying is because you do that on a regular drum, you can bury the
bury
stick
your
as
stick
well,
in there, of course, yeah.
to get that sound effect. So in
That's
that sense,
it.
yeah, totally, to be able to do all those different things, yeah, totally crank it up. But if you're just burying the beater, nah, yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, I like you're saying, starting out and everything. That's all that I knew or thought, or you know what I mean. I would bury absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And gradually, I just learned to control the pedal a little bit
Exactly.
more, and then now more often than not, I'm just floating. I'm just floating on my pedal. You know what I mean? My foot is not down. Do you play, John? Do you play heel up or heel down primarily? I know a lot of jazzers are heel down and
Yeah,
heel
that's it.
control.
Fundamentally, what you're talking about there is the dynamics that are required for the music. Because if you're dropping your leg, the whole leg on the pedal and all that, it's going to be hard to play with a lighter dynamic for the music. So it's good to have that ankle thing going on. So I play them. I play them all. I did a lot of heel up for a long time, especially, in those formative years, going way back. And I was touring and I was playing, and some of the rooms, especially back in that day, you didn't have the technology you have today. Okay, so you had to really get your sound out into the room. So sometimes you had to play really hard to get in the mix.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about playing anything really hard rock, something really dynamic like that, the volume levels.
Yeah.
But more, a lot of different dynamics in more of a show context. But a lot of those rooms, there was no sound reinforcement. The drums weren't mic'd. None of that was happening, And that was the requirement for the music then and for those venues. But sometimes you had to play really hard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, crank it
you
up in the right room in the right scenario.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes you gotta push it out, and that really affects how I'm feeling when I'm playing. Specifically, how I'm interacting with the hi-hat stand and with my bass drum pedal really impacts my energy level. It's just like putting the ride out a little bit further, and you get that Suckerman talks about that.
Sure.
About having his ride, the bell, a little bit out of reach, so you just kind of have that little forward motion, and then in your mind you're like next gear,
Pushing
you're
it.
like third gear, fourth gear, that's when you're really driving.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that the physicality of what we're doing impacts our mental state, which impacts the playing, and it's all connected.
Yep,
Cool.
absolutely.
Very cool. All right, I got a couple more, so let's get through these. Crank it up, turn it down. Sharing drums. Just as a topic.
Yeah.
I know we've all done it. I know we've all had to do it. But as a topic, would you crank that up overall, or would you turn it down?
I am cranking it up because I tend to be a little lazy when it comes to that type of stuff, and I don't like lugging too much stuff out. So if I'm on a bill where it all depends. If a house drum set is different than sharing a drum set in a lot of cases.
Right.
You go to the club, and I've played on house kits, and they're just beat to hell, and they're not given any regard by the owners of the club, and the heads are shot, and it's missing pieces. That tends to suck. But I don't really consider that sharing drums. But if you were playing a show, and there's 4 bands playing, and you're one of them, and you're only playing like maybe a half-hour set, I think everyone should at least share a drum set. I think it's better than 4 guys loading in their drums, taking up the time to do that, especially if we're all playing the same style of music and we're all playing 4 or 5 piece kits. It's nice to be able to share a drum set. You can move things forward or quickly. So I'm going to crank it up. I like sharing.
John,
Yeah, me too.
you dig it?
Yeah. Well, again, here we go. Back in the day,
We need a tally.
The land before time.
We'll keep a tally on the side of the screen back in the day.
well, it was a lot like what I was thinking of with this question is how often this would happen depending on the venues, but it happened a lot in Vegas. Okay, playing a lounge, and you got bands that are playing in that lounge 24 hours a day. And so the bands come in, and then you get to know one another, and then you got the guy with the really nice drum set, something, hey, we use yours. And one thing that was really cool about that was the mutual respect. So it wasn't really a question. If somebody was going to share their drums, they knew that their drums weren't going to be abused or anything like that. Everybody was on the same page and very respectful of whoever's drums we're using. But I got to play. I think I mentioned this to you, Adam, one time about I got an opportunity to play a lot of different make drums in that way.
There's your research. Of
It
just
was
a slew. What do you want? Well, you see, I've played this, and this. Now I have experience with it. Real world gig experience, which is way more than tapping it in a store.
Yeah. That was always a lot of fun, and and you make all the friends because back then everybody's hanging out. There was schools, education, but there wasn't a lot of materials available. Very few books. Just the classic books. And then we would all talk about that and compare notes and, at breakfast after the gig, everybody getting together and being able to talk. So, you learned a lot from your peers. Just hanging out and talking. It was
trying out
a wonderful
other gear, Even the shells are one thing, Typically you'll bring breakables nowadays, or you bring your cymbals, bring a pedal, a throne, maybe whatever makes you comfortable. Perhaps a snare drum.
Yeah.
But at least, if nothing else, sharing the shells, it's
so
3 to 5 pieces of
But I'm
drum
going
gear
to
you don't have
say
to
that
bring.
I know that John here, the types of gigs that he's playing really now, you're the band all night. Whereas me, I'm usually playing with 3 other bands, things like that. So usually you don't run into that situation where you have to even talk about sharing drums because you are the entertainment for the night, all night long. Am I right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, I've had experiences both ways. Depending on the gig or the scenario. Obviously, I'm big into gear, so it's nice to play my drums and play them out.
Yeah.
And if anyone ever has the opportunity to hear your drums, I look forward to that. I don't know. If
I've offered that up. I've been the guy. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I've been the guy for the purpose of, hey, a drummer you trust too. Just hey, don't bring anything. Literally, I'll have everything there. I just played that festival, the church festival thing with Christy, and I was like, don't bring anything. I literally know what sticks you play. And she literally just showed up.
Perfect.
You know what I mean? She was like, this is the
Easy.
best. And I was
I
like,
know.
yes. But at the same time, I sat out in the audience and I could hear my cymbals, my pedal, my snare, if I want to, and I took notes mentally. I was like, all right, I need to let off. It's a little too dampened on the snare. I want to let that thing breathe a little bit.
Wasn't there a customer
stuff like that?
just talking about that he just played? I can't. Who was it? He said, it was the best gig ever. I just came in with my stick bag and that's it. Who said that?
Someone just did say that.
And I can't remember who said that. It wasn't Craig. I don't think.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember. But we were having that conversation when if
Yeah.
you just show up with a pair of sticks, it's like, man,
Right.
this is some luxury. But at the same time, it's fun to be that guy every now and then. Not every time, but every now and then to have that perspective of your drums. Now, I have a quick follow-up on this one. You can go one of 2 directions or both. What's the nicest kit you've sat in on or the worst kit you've sat in on when you show up for the gig? And that's what you get. And it's really, really nice. And you're like, this was an honor to play these drums. They sound great. They look great. Or the worst case scenario. I've got a worst. That's why I threw that in there. But I'm curious to hear
I think the worst for me was like a sound percussion kit, and then maybe the best was a Masters or a Star Classic, something like that. When you go and there's a Star Classic there you're playing on, that's kind of cool. So those are best and worst for me.
Yeah, so what was your favorite? I know we talked about a couple of kits. You got to try a lot of nice drums in that era. Rogers, Ludwig, some
All of them.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any bad experiences ever? You're like, oh my God, look at this.
So,
What are you doing to me?
yeah. I don't know. Most of my work, I had my equipment. I was fortunate, if I had to, I was able to use my own drums.
Sure.
So I was happy there because you're comfortable with your own. Everything that is happening there as you put them together and tune them up and how they feel to you and everything, you can't beat that. But that takes some effort, and they're
Yeah.
your drums. It's
Yeah.
a wonderful thing. But getting to that point where playing all these different drums, and by my friends and good drummers, everybody had, and because of the venues, because of the music you were playing, everybody was kind of in the same range, tuning wise. There wasn't anybody that was like too tight or anybody was too loose or anything. Everything was.
Yeah. Did
was
you have
in a
to
good-
adjust the setup
good
at all,
place.
or did you find a happy
Very,
medium?
very little there
Okay.
too. Very little. You know, drum thrones were fairly consistent. I mean, unless it was somebody that, and that didn't even matter. You know, by somebody taller, longer
Yeah.
legs or whatever, because they would set back. It was just all those things I experienced during those years of playing that kind of stuff and with a lot of different drums.
I've seen those situations too, where guys don't like. Okay, you can play the drums, but don't adjust. You're not allowed to adjust
Yeah,
anything.
don't mess with it.
And that's a little like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
basic adjustment was
Yeah.
certainly all right, but
Okay.
most of the time, things were certainly in a good place. You might have a cymbal because maybe there might be some extra toms because that's what this gentleman needed for his
Yep.
work. And then the ride cymbals over here, it's up a little bit higher, and we all played the cymbals higher back then anyway. It seems, but that would be no problem just to adjust yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing was out of reach. Nothing was extreme.
And
'Cause
that's experience too.
well, it's everybody knew about proper posture for playing the drums because they were all guys that had experience and they had learned like you
Yep.
don't want to do this because you're just breaking your neck. You're doing unnecessary motion, to be able to accomplish something. So just the posture, the ergonomics in setting up the drums and sitting there and knowing what you need to move efficiently on the drums. And all that was really easy. But I don't remember anything that was really ugly. It was all pretty cool all the way around,
Yeah.
and everybody was cool with it. The only thing I would say was maybe a jam session.
Oh yeah, an open mic or a jam session. Then you
Oh,
you could
big
run
time.
into some different things. And I just remembered I played where did I play Fat Daddy's once, and I had to play the other dude's drums, and he had a floor tom that was in a snare basket. And he was taller than I was, and that thing sat up real high, and it wouldn't go
can't
any
lower
lower.
that.
So if I came over, like, and you're playing punk rock, you're riding on a floor tom, I'm like up here, like I'm like, oh great, I look like a
Just
goofball
ignore it at that point.
Yeah, pretty much. I kind of thought, well, I guess I'm going to stay away from this floor tom over
Yeah,
here.
it's tough. So I'll touch on it briefly. I played it was a different type festival thing, and hey, drums are provided. Just bring a stick bag basically, and I should have brought more. I should, and in the back of my mind, I was like, all right, I should bring some breakables, bring this and that, just in case, because I don't know what I'm walking into. But again, sometimes laziness wins the day, and that is when you get yourself into trouble. But I showed up and I had to play whatever was there. There was no ride cymbal, period. There was a 17-inch crash as the biggest cymbal, which I made a ride. Lowered that down just to have something to hit over there. The bass drum had a whole bunch of foam taped on it, and as I was playing, it was falling off on top of my feet, and the bass drum was sounding worse and worse because muffling was physically getting rocked off of the drum while I was playing. The snare drum, maybe I could play maybe 50% what my normal stroke was, or else the throw off from the vibration flipped off.
Yeah.
And the toms were complete mush because they were so detuned, and there was a broken tension rod on both of them. So it was just like mush, like your stick gets swallowed into the drum head. Just you know what that's like. But so that was pretty bad. Of course, you get the normal bass drum running away from you, hi-hat sliding away from you because there was no rug on the cement.
Oh, that's something that we didn't talk about is your rug, or like forgetting your rug or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, drum rug, super important.
Yeah.
I forgot my rug recently. Probably about 6 months ago, I was playing at this thing, and I brought some stuff, but it was kind of like a mismatch of my gear and someone else's gear, so the communication wasn't as great as it should have been. But I actually ended up, I posted about it and jokingly said, this gig brought to you by Jeep. because I took the back mat out of my Wrangler and put that down, and that was because I needed something for the bass drum. I was basically covered the bass drum and my pedal. It was just that little floor car mat, and I was like, save the day. Luckily, it had rubber on the bottom.
And
so
did the car mat say Jeep on it?
Yeah, it did right up
It does,
front.
yeah.
That's
They always do.
funny. Yeah, anything Jeep will have those 4 letters on it.
All right.
Guaranteed. All right, quick round, speed round. Crank it up, turn it down, double floor toms, or multiple floor toms. The number's up to you. Playing with 2 floors.
John, you go first on this one.
Well,
Crank that up, turn that down.
Yeah, sure. Crank it up.
I'm going to crank it up too.
Absolutely.
It doubles as a table.
That's the unfortunate fate of that second floor tom.
Yeah.
Sometimes is you're like, well, I don't need it, but
Right. Yeah,
just
crank it up.
start putting stuff over there.
I think,
Yeah,
for me, I've gone so many years now playing a 4-piece set that playing a proper 5 feels weird. And if I were going to go to 5, I would do the double floor tom 5, I think.
Yeah.
Because just removing that second tom and having my ride cymbal there is just so comfortable for me. So if I'm going to play a 5, I'm going to do double floor tom. So I'm cranking it up.
Yeah.
There you go.
John, have you actively played with 2?
I have. And that
Did you lay your wallet on
was
there?
brief. Well, I was going to go to that place.
Sorry, I didn't mean to beat you to
Wallet
it.
holder.
No, because I was going to mention, the great Buddy Rich.
Ah, yeah.
And, he could play him. But a lot of times, that second floor tom was for a sweat pal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And whatever. Because he did enough with, the 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You know.
He did enough with just the hi hats.
Yeah,
did more
right.
with the hi hats than
all
any of us.
that. All that.
But
there is that option, of being able to create the sounds. And as things evolved over the years, it almost became a requirement, depending on your music.
Yeah.
Depending what you were covering and all the rest of it. Like I think I said earlier about on one gig, I had a whole bunch of extra tom-toms that were in there, and the purpose was the music, and it was during that era, and it was during the era when Mr. Hal Blaine was creating the most incredible drum parts for music ever created, and one of the things he did was with that monster kit with the tom-toms and those fills, and just created a whole new vibe.
Absolutely.
So then, on occasion, depending on like who I'd be working with and what the requirements were, and I had that for a couple years, and so I ended up with 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there were 6. No, there were 7. Sorry,
Well, is this
7 tom-toms. Why?
Was this the Gretsch USA kit that you had?
No,
Because that kit was bigger than a 5 or 6 piece, right? I mean, you had different toms to choose from. How many pieces was
What,
it?
my Gretsch?
Yeah,
With that,
the red one.
yeah, the USA. They were. That was just a 5-piece.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It was 2 mounted toms.
Okay.
2 mounted toms.
I thought
one
maybe you
floor
had.
tom-tom.
I thought maybe you had 2 floor
Nope,
toms.
didn't have
to
2 floor tom-toms
Pick and
with
choose
that.
from different things. Okay.
Nope.
going back to the Buddy Rich thing, he rocked 2 16s too, which
Yeah.
is so interesting to me. It always fascinates me when you see it like aesthetically in the pictures. It looks all real nice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no one does that
No.
anymore. It's like, oh, I got a 14 16 or big boy 16 18.
Well, that was even kind of the style back in the day.
Oh, you're adding that to the marker, the back in the day
back
marker.
in the day. You would have 2 12s, right? It wasn't a 12 and a
Yep, or
13.
2 13s,
You'd buy a
or,
drum
yeah.
set, it would be 2 of the same sizes, and it was up to you just to tune them differently to make them sound different. Now, I don't see too many of those kits come through, but I have.
Yeah, and you don't see them being in production now.
Right.
But man, all these drum companies, think about one less machine, one less mold, one less. There's like, just double it up. Just give me 2 of these and 2 of those. I recently just, luckily they were different depths, so my tuning was all right. But I just played a 4-piece kit, and then I brought my 14-inch floor tom. But it was luckily one of those Tama Neomod kits, so it had like a 14 by 10. I think they're like travel size, 14 by 10, and then I had a 14-14. So I was able to crank this one up a little bit. Crank it up, turn it down. Crank it up, tune it down. a little bit to get a little bit of variance in there. But with 214s, I found that even a little difficult to get distinct tonalities out of it.
Sure.
But it was a lot of fun having that other kit or that other floor tom. And I did that when I had the Black Diamond Pearl Slingerland kit. I just kept that 16 with my Mapex kit.
Yeah.
Just because I kind of liked it.
Or doing double floor tom, but putting the other floor tom to the left.
I always think of you
Larry,
too.
Yeah, Larry Mullen.
You
did
were
that.
about to say it. Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Some of those grooves are just like, it's so fun to see. That's what
Yeah.
I picture whenever I see that.
Yep.
Um,
So that's another way to do it.
Another
So
way to do it.
Definitely cranking up the double floor tom. I think.
yeah,
it's-
I'm cranking
I
it
think
up
it's
too.
cool, yeah.
All right, we'll crank that up. All right, let's move ahead. So we basically cranked everything up. We love everything.
Yeah, we love everything.
Wow, riveting stuff. No controversy
No
here. We're just
controversy. No.
friends that agree on drum stuff. All right, we're going to hop into drum industry news. That's it. All right. So drum industry news. It's that simple, Shawn. I click a little button and then magic happens behind the scenes. Drum industry news. We try to highlight some or bring up some topics about aspects of the drum industry that are not talked about or not known by a lot of customers just walking the door, this or that. This one I geared specifically towards John because he's here and I really want his perspective. John Peifer has been teaching at Drums Etc. since Drums Etc. started.
This is true. Yes.
This is he's been around, and he's been around Drums Etc. And he's been a teacher for a very long time. So the topic for this drum industry news segment is the 2023 drum student and how students have changed over the years. I'm sure you have a lot of opinions on this and experience behind this, but I really want to know what it's like. Hey, John, we got a new student for you as of yesterday. Or, hey, John, we got a new student for you, and it's Rick in 85, 86, starting out.
Yeah.
What are the expectations like? What is that initial greeting like? Take it away.
Yeah, well,
Or maybe there's not too many differences. I just imagine that a new student, especially if we're talking youngster, is different now. You
Yeah.
know?
I think it is.
yeah, it is different. But over the years, as a teacher, you're going to find your way. Okay, there's always the fundamentals. You've got to make sure you have an understanding of all those things and the materials that are available. Okay, so you have that together. Then over time, like I said, you start finding out what is a good approach to be able to, so you're talking about a new student, to evaluate a new student and somewhat be able to get rolling with what you feel the student needs. And most of the time it's pretty simple because you're just talking about fundamentals. And every teacher wants to do that for sure. Put the fundamentals to the students so they understand what this is about.
I always found that like students tend to have a different, not every student, because fundamentals are that doesn't change. So yeah, totally. But everyone's preconceived idea of what it takes to start playing drums and everything, that has had to change over these years, right? I mean, the fundamentals don't change, but being able to identify, okay, what is this young student? He's into playing drums. What is he like? Usually, back in the day, it's like, oh, okay, you aspired to be this, the jazz drummer you saw, or the rock drummer, or you liked certain styles of music, and that's what inspired all of us. But now the kids are different, or not just kids, everybody consumes things differently, and now the new students that are coming through are just a totally different breed than what was coming through 20 years ago. Which was probably my generation of, it's like, okay, I could relate to those guys. Now it's something completely new. It's like, okay, fundamentals don't change, but it's like, I know that sometimes you can start with those fundamentals, and all the while you need to kind of still encourage the student to, like what he likes, or kind of gear towards, what he's expecting out of it, without going too opposite the one way where he just loses interest, I think.
So can you pinpoint, are there a couple of expectations now that didn't exist then, or vice versa, as far as first lesson coming into it?
Well, Shawn was right in regards to you really have to take the individual
Right.
into consideration. What's going on here? What do they have to say? And as you gain more experience, and as the times change, and the student, their expectations changes because it's a different time. They're exposed to a lot of different things than back in the day. They're kind of, yeah, let's get on with this.
Right.
And that's the balancing act. To be able to give them those fundamentals that they absolutely have to have, and they should have, and instilling that discipline, because that's one of the real pluses in studying an instrument, is getting to that place. And then, what do they want to do?
Yeah, are they interested in playing in school band? Are they liking
Absolutely.
video game music? Are they liking what your dad listened to? Do they like
wanna play in a
jingles?
band,
Yeah,
or do
they
they
wanna play
not
in a
care
band?
about that?
Are they into electronical styles of music? All of that is relative, and so are the fundamentals. So totally, I know that you are big on fundamentals, and that doesn't change, which is the great thing.
no, it doesn't.
That doesn't change. But all the while, you'll get maybe the older guy who's coming in who he thinks that one lesson is going to do it, or he has a preconceived idea of what he's going to get out of this, and you're like, oh, okay, and you do the evaluation like you do. You go, okay, that's part of it. Looking at the whole picture, you're evaluating this guy who's coming in, and you go, okay, we're going to have to take it back to the beginning, because we need to work on these fundamentals, and that might not be what he wants to hear.
Yeah.
He or she, but it's the truth.
It's the truth.
That's it. Well, I do want to mention that you're very good at that. And I know if there's ever someone specifically that is like, this is what I need, or I don't know what I need, or I'm trying to play this, but it's not quite working. Anyone that approaches us with a puzzle, I know within 5 minutes of you talking with them and seeing them playing, you're just going to be like, pinpoint, that's it. That's what you need to work on. That's where you need to focus. And then it's up to them if they want to put the work in or not.
Right.
That's where the ball kind of...
Yeah, because, as a teacher, I know that you want to teach for the student, but you don't want to let the student dictate how you teach either. So
No, you can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that. And I know you don't do that. But you can fall down that trap very easily with okay, it's a new student, so I'm just going to let him call the shots, and you can't do that.
Right. You're seeking expertise.
Yeah.
Speaking of seeking expertise, Shawn, students coming in for lessons
Yes.
versus, what is your interaction with them? You've worked the shop over 20 some years, forever. Shawn's been here forever too.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Ding, ding,
Ding,
ding.
ding. No, but you've worked here for a long time. Is there a difference in the student that comes in for their lesson now and the student that comes in back when you started?
Yeah, I do. I think so.
What's the difference?
I can't put my finger on it exactly.
Yeah.
There's no difference really in the parent getting the youngster involved. That's still kind of the same. Why they're inspired, that might change, but that approach hasn't changed very much, where you'll get the phone call, or a parent will come in or email and say, hey, I have a youngster who's interested in playing drums. He's 7 years old. How do lessons begin? Well, that really hasn't changed. But what has changed is what the new drummers are into. It used to be, especially me coming up, you turn on MTV, you listen to the radio, and that was what was kind of like, you digested, and that's what you were kind of into. But now there's so many different acts, artists, styles out there to consume. So that is a little different than it used to be. Everyone used to be. I wouldn't say that everyone was into the same thing, but everyone
Right.
was into the same thing. You know, back in the day, everyone was into the same thing. It felt like anyway. Now it's like I don't even know what anybody's into
Yeah.
or likes anymore. But as long as people still want to drum, and we keep that alive and the fundamentals and the art of drumming, we're good to go. Because drumming, no matter what style of music we're doing, it's there.
Yeah.
Drums are there in it
Right.
all. Whether it's electronic, acoustic, organic,
Yeah, there's
hand percussion,
foundations and rhythm.
it's all still there.
It is interesting that you bring that up, like saying everyone, and I know what you're getting at. When we talked to Carl, you and Carl were talking about how many, like you and him, and you weren't alone, saw Lars Ulrich,
Right.
listened to Metallica as their first tape, and said, I want to do that.
Right.
That's what I want to play like Metallica, and picked up the drums because of that. There are record sales of Tama white drums from that era
Yeah.
trying to look like Lars's kit.
And you can
can't
go
ignore
back
that or deny that.
to Nanamacher's generation with the Beatles, the same thing. It's like everyone was so like blown away with
Those oyster
that
kits,
changed
Ludwig was
everything.
churning them out, man.
Yeah, but that changed everything. And then of course back in the day with John, and we can get to that. I know he was around music, at an early age because of his father, but we can get into that. What was his rock star? What was his rock
Yeah.
star moment?
Why do you
what is
think?
it? Whoa,
That's
this
a great.
guy.
That's a great point,
Yeah.
John. Overall, before we get into specifics about your story, why do you think a lot of drummers picked up the sticks around the time that you did? What do you think was the driving inspiration behind that?
Probably, we have to go with the old guys that were coming to the forefront, because drums were kind of in the background, supporting the music and all that. And then all of a sudden there was this drummer man, Gene Krupa. And now he's at the front of the band
Yeah.
and doing all this really cool stuff. And you would go, wow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
wow. And that was what did it for me.
Yep.
Being able to see the drum set, because early, that was pretty early when I was hip to him, but that was through my dad. My father was hip to the big bands and all that, and it was big band music that I would hear, and it was, the swing music. So I was hearing that, I'm going, that's pretty cool. And then it was just, Buddy Rich, that was a whole nother story, because he was just something else, especially at that time period. Real freaky man, because he had played from such a young age and had developed just physically, just his whole being, to play drums
Right.
from the get-go. I mean, he started playing drums
Traps.
professionally when
The
he was
boy wonder.
18 months old. And then he's on the circuit with his parents.
Vaudeville.
And right, all that, and would get advice like, "Hey, kid, don't do it that way. Do it this way," from some of the great drummers in the pit,
Yeah.
playing all those shows and everything. So he had some guidance in that regard. Don't do that. Do this, kid. That was a big deal where he just put it all together.
I was just about ready to say, those are the guys that created it. They did put it all
Yeah.
together, because before that, it was a totally different ball game back in the day. And guys like Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa came along and put drums in the forefront and really created that.
They be that iconic drummer
Yes, yeah,
position,
Uh-huh.
rather than just the support.
Yeah.
Where non-drummers know who the drummer is in the band, and drummers had their own bands. Like
All that.
all built off of, built up over time.
Yeah, that's the deal. So
It's really cool. It's really cool that's sort of how things evolved.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I rather that more of like a burst in a time period, like over history some things gradually develop, and then there are other things that's just like bam, now this is the new thing. Like iconic inventions or this or that, and all of a sudden it shakes what's going on. Drumming, the drum set wasn't a thing for so long until that kind of got, and then it was very quick around that time period where it's just like not only are drums and drum sets being integrated into popular music, But now the drummer can be the main guy. Can be like the act you're going to see.
Yeah.
You're going to see Buddy Rich's
And then-
band.
then the
Buddy
art-
Rich and his band.
Then
you
the
know?
art of drumming became what it became.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Right.
this is almost a quick question, which is like another thing, another segment we do here. But I don't get annoyed when I get asked this question, but when I do get asked this question, it's almost as if people are like losing faith in the art. Like I get really like inside of my head when they ask me this. It doesn't come out and I answer it politely and everything. But some people are like, so you guys really get new students? Like kids are picking up guitar and picking up drums? Really? Is that actually happening? And in my mind, I'm like, of course it's like music is so integral into our society. Like of course new musicians are coming out, but there's some not rumor, but I don't know what the best way to describe it is. Like video games. It's not video killed the radio stars. Video games killed musicians for some reason. People correlate those two things so closely together. Like kids aren't picking up the guitar or drums nowadays. They're just sitting in their rooms playing video games. And I'm like, I don't know why these two are so connected for you, besides just being hobbies or pastimes.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, we're getting new students.
Yeah.
People are picking up the sticks
know.
all over, and I just kind of want to dispel that a
Yeah.
little bit
You're absolutely right.
because I don't know why those two are so closely related.
Because of what you just said. It's
The hobby
it's like,
thing.
when you start coming up and you want to get a hobby, whether it's drawing or painting or exercising or you name it. It's how you use your spare time.
Yeah.
And what better way to use your spare time than learning an instrument and playing, especially the drums. I mean, it's like,
Oh yeah, we're allowed to be biased, especially the drums, drummers.
Yeah. Well,
on
all
drum
of it has to do with just basic discipline to be able to, get to it. It really is just that part that is important. And what was I just thinking? I was thinking you were saying, Adam, about, thinking like somebody would be saying like, the arts, they're dying.
Yeah.
Kind of like it's fading away because we have all this. Well,
it's changing.
I mean, there's been distractions. I kind of go along with that, which has caused maybe there could have been more people that might have gone to that place, the arts. But at the same time, there's so much all the information that's available. I think there's more that people are actually gravitating toward the arts. And that's important. That's really, really important. And the more that happens, the better off we will be, instead of things where we're not spending our time well. We're kind of wasting our time. We have hand-eye coordination. We're playing some video game or whatever, and some of that has some value. Some of the storylines and all, and that can be fun. But I look at it a lot when I see in some of the activity along those lines. It's like a time sponge. It's just like the time goes away, and you're putting a lot of time there. And you could be spending it in a better way, to better yourself and be a stronger person, just to be able to deal with anything. And that's what I feel about learning an instrument, especially drums, in regards to developing a discipline and being able to focus and see a lot of things, because that's what we do. We're training the brain in a lot of ways, depending on how you're working the materials and the like, especially when you're playing the drum set with all four limbs. And there's numerous things that have to take place. And, the common man walking down the street, he doesn't have that going on. Okay, there's other ways of there's other stimuli, but this is more the discipline, the focus. So there's a whole nother thing going on up here. And So that's time well spent.
And it's an indescribable feeling when you're in that zone and you're playing. Like, you can't, the normal guy walking down the street, he might have other stimulation, be stimulated in some other ways, but there's nothing quite like when you're in that zone playing or practicing and you're getting it and you're feeling it, man. It's like, it's such a good feeling. I don't know if video game players get that. Maybe they do.
Yeah, I would say there's a big element or key element of self-awareness when it comes to stuff like this. When it comes to video games or drumming or whatever it might be. Any way I know we're zeroing in on video games. I play video games. I'm not worried.
Yeah, sure. No.
Yeah, I know you
that's
do.
fine.
But my point is that you need to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? You need to be aware, is this just a payoff? Are we putting time into the drums for the payoff of, a year down the line, that gig that felt so good? And not that you received applause or this or that, but when you were in the zone with the band, that's
it.
That euphoria, is that what you're chasing?
Yeah.
Well, that's a year away if you do this now,
Right.
and that brain development. Or are you just looking to escape? Do you put on Netflix just for escapism? It's like, okay, are you turning your brain off or are you developing your brain?
Yeah.
It's a very different.
I put the headphones on and jam along to music to escape.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay, and we're not demonizing that. It's not like.
But going back to what you said earlier about when somebody said to you, "Really have new students like coming in?" Those people haven't spent much time on YouTube or Instagram because there's a lot of really great drummers out there. Like so many, so many great drummers that you could, at your fingertips that you could just, type in and John is always coming to me and telling me about someone new. Oh, you check this guy out. Oh my gosh, you have to check out. Do you know who this guy is? I'm like, no, he's more hip than I am. He's always telling me about someone he knew to check out. I'm like, oh, okay, and I'm following him now on Instagram. Watching these great drummers. So it's alive and well. I mean, there's so many great drummers right now.
And they are a lot of those guys are conveying the proper information too.
Yep.
They're not just they're talking to you. They're playing incredible things. They're just amazing, But then they're talking about like it took me probably 15 years to be able to play this,
right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing,
right?
And so it's very inspiring, and there's a lot of people doing it. And I was just thinking, I can't go there. I was going to just say that there's a lot of innovation that's taking place in our world, the whole planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
And all these people kind of, got hip through their cultures and the like. And then, of course, we became pretty obvious with our music, our pop culture, certainly our original creative art form, jazz, which that's part of freedom and what we have here and all that. And, of course, that music spread around the world. And there's so many of these young players that are really grabbing a hold. And they know the history. They've done their homework. Some of them are a little freaky because it is a gift. Like that the Spanish gentleman, was it Sabriano, the Spanish guy that's freaking everybody out.
Yep.
With just his stick tricks and everything. But he is just so on point. And
great.
His feel, and just everything is just... But he has worked it really hard. And now he's in a position to really inspire some folks, because it's really becoming very broad range now. His last, whatever, because he's been around for a bit. And I know his band. Well, I guess left. I'm not quite sure the time frame there, but I don't think it was that long ago. You hip to the band? Saratoga
Yeah.
is the Spanish band. And I mean, they're outstanding.
Yeah.
Really great band. And they got him back there in the driver's seat.
Right.
And just really everything
Yep.
just so on point.
And I'm sure that
Every
he's
piece of it.
inspiring people now too,
Totally,
in a different way
And-
than I was inspired.
Yep.
And people are consuming their information differently, just going through reels, and he pops up, and it's like, oh crap. I don't know if I've seen that come through yet. Like, because I always ask, the new students coming through, like, what do you like?
Yeah.
I try to stay away from who's your favorite band kind of thing, but
it's a tough question,
it's a
especially
tough
for
question. I'm just like, well, what got you into playing? It could be a favorite band. It could be an uncle that's playing drums. It could be your dad playing drums. It could be watching your buddies in school band play. It could be so many different things, and it could be also just going through your YouTube reels, and all of a sudden you come across this great drummer who just blows your mind, and you go, I want to do that.
That's it. Innovation is growing based on inspiration because of the access that everyone has to the information.
Right.
There it is.
Wow.
These times.
That's it. All right. Good
Yeah.
time to move on. Let's pop into Hall of Fame. All right. The sausage. Thank you, Shawn. All right. So, Hall of Fame. We're big gear nerds here. That is no surprise to anyone who's ever met us. So, we are going to induct another member, or we're going to create a new member for the Hall of Fame, basically, is what we're doing.
Sure.
Induct a new product. And they've been hiding in plain sight in the middle of the studio because we didn't want to have to move them in the 10 seconds that we just had there. And it looks real good under the lights.
It really does.
So, we are inducting into the Hall of Fame. The 9th inductee is the Zildjian A cymbal.
Boom.
Or all of them.
The entire line. Not just
everything.
the new beat hi-hats, arguably the most recorded hi-hats in the history of music.
Nope.
No. We're
All
inducting
of
the
them.
entire line. And
New,
we have
old, vintage,
everything.
everything.
This is the industry standard. This is when you would walk into a music store back in the day. This is what you would see. You would see a cymbal display just like this, and you would have a ride, a few crash cymbals, and a pair of hats, and maybe a splash. And that's it. You didn't have, I need an 18-inch crash cymbal. Well, what do you want? Do you want thin, medium, rock, or heavy? No. You had an 18-inch crash cymbal. Am I right or am I right?
You're right.
This is right. And also, I'm going to bring this up too, because hiding in plain sight, because I brought this home, this is from my personal stash, is this guy right here. This is an old vintage A ride cymbal that actually used to belong to John Peifer. This is your old ride cymbal that you sold me. And since we were going to induct the entire Avidus line, most people say Avidus, but it's technically Avidus, which is his name, Avidus Zildjian. And this was a ride cymbal, and Rick, that John was going through. He was selling off some gear back in the day. I think you were moving to your pad now, and this is it right there. Check it out.
Yeah, man.
Don't let him play it. He's going to want it back.
He's gonna fall in love with
it's a great,
It is
20-inch medium ride Zildjian. There wasn't a wide variety back then, anyway. And of course, it's
gone. I think it. If you could look.
I think it was in there.
20.
No, that's
65.
there it is.
60 says $65.
$65.
65.
Imagine.
This was at a mom and pop music store in Orlando, Florida.
Nice.
I needed a ride because I got robbed.
Oh.
I was all depressed and everything. But anyway, and I was with the Showstoppers at the Big Top Lounge, probably
Big Top Lounge.
69.
Good name.
It really is.
Probably about, I think that's about right. 1969. And that's
$65.
$65.
For,
they wrote it right
for
on the
the
symbol.
ride.
Yeah.
Imagine if we did that.
It's
Imagine
funny.
if we-
Do you see it?
I see it. Yeah.
20-inch.
Yep.
$65.
$65. Imagine
At a mom and pop
tomorrow
music store.
I
you
love
walk
it,
into
huh?
Drums,
Look at
etc., and a brand
Beautiful. I
new
mean, that's-
20-inch Zildjian A
that's
ride
a-
cymbal is $65.
Oh yeah.
Great.
And it still responds.
Yep.
Nice stick,
Beautiful
nice
response.
rebound.
Yep, it
You
certainly
know,
does.
It's
And this
classic.
is
That's classic.
then this is what I'm playing in my home studio right now. My home studio meaning my third floor where I keep my drums. This is the cymbal that I'm playing. I'm not doing much jazz on it, but I am
it.
playing a lot of rock and roll on this.
Yeah, I did too,
Yeah, I know you did.
for sure.
But yeah, I thought I'd bring that in because it's kind of cool. So
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to put it back?
yeah,
Put it
might
back.
as well put it back.
But yeah, so a lot of these, as you can see
cool.
if you're watching the podcast, if you're listening to it, you can't see. So I'll describe it to you. The modern A Zildjian cymbal is no longer just that little stamp that you got to look real close for when you spin the cymbal around. Obviously, they started printing on top of them not only a big Zildjian logo, but then the classic A, and then underneath whatever specific version of the ride it is. Based on the lathing is really the biggest difference. Where they lathe, how much they take off the cymbal, how much material they leave back. The bells and the sound profile shape of A's are fairly similar. You could take an old one or a new one and check them all out. But, we got a medium thin crash, a thin crash, but, the A line typically does not have a brilliant finish on it. There are some out there. I think we have an A suite downstairs that's got that on it. Got like kind of more the A custom look. So most of the time, if you see an A cymbal that's got the brilliant finish, it'll likely be an A custom. Not all the time. They make a couple brilliant A's, but for the most part, this is kind of like your classic selection of A crash cymbals, A ride cymbals, that sort of thing. And then, of course, the vintage vibe.
yeah, sure.
Vintage vibe. You know what I mean? You can't go wrong. I know tons of drummers that purely play 60s, 70s A's.
Yep.
Like that's their jam. And they're not from that time, but that's their jam. You know what I mean?
They're just a good,
just-
versatile. You can play
Absolutely.
all different styles of music with these cymbals, and I think that's why they've stood the test of time over the years. There have been a lot of new cymbal companies that have come up, and they're innovating new things and everything else, but still the Zildjian A's remain consistent, and that's kind of funny because they have the reputation of not being consistent. Right, like you can find a 18-inch medium thin, and you grab 3 others, and they don't sound the same. Now, some will say, "Oh, that's a bad thing." No, that's a great thing because you never know.
Yeah.
You find oh my gosh, this 18, and it's the love of your life. And it's like you found it. It's beautiful. But if you're in love with that, and someone steals it or it breaks, chances are you're not going to be able to replicate that.
That exact one.
Yeah, that exact one.
That is an interesting point, though, because with cymbals, we talked about this with Josh a little bit. It is funny that sometimes, from a retail perspective, from what we do selling stuff, it's nice when stuff's real consistent. Peiste's great at like every Peiste, signature 16-inch full crash is the exact same, basically. Like they're really, really similar.
Yeah.
Like you can, in a pinch, get one. Or, if you get one, you dig it, you play it in store, you take it home, and then you want to order online from the same local drum shop, because that's what you got to do, support local drum shops. Maybe they'll just ship you the next one. You can be pretty safe. I do recommend shopping in person with cymbals.
That's one of my most favorite things is when we get either new cymbals in direct from Zildjian factory or when they come in used.
A stack
I
of
gotta
cymbals.
hear them, man.
Yep.
I want to play them. Like,
Every cymbal's
you gotta
been
go.
played
You gotta
by-
go through. Yeah,
Yep.
because you never know, and you're like, oh my god, there it is. So and you're not gonna get that. You're gonna get consistency with the Peistes, right? But it's gonna be a different type because you know what the 16-inch full crash is going to sound like. It's going to sound awesome. It's going to sound great. But I love getting the old cymbals in and
and then the
trying them
dirt.
out.
The
dirt, the
there's
grime.
some
Look at
dirt
that.
on it.
Yeah, there is
There's some dirt on it, and I dig it. I dig the dirt. I'm not out here
too.
cleaning my cymbals. I'm sorry.
Never.
I'm sorry.
But if you need to clean your cymbals,
Go to drumsetcetera.com.
I would recommend.
Yeah. But there are different things out there. There's Groove Juice, which is simple, wipe down, get some fingerprints. Especially if you got brilliant stuff, you want them to look nice for a photo shoot or something. Wipe all the fingerprints.
Or
off
if you're
it.
sending this out to a customer,
Or whatever,
clean it up a
there's
little bit.
things been beat up. Yeah, absolutely. But that being said, I say once you take a cymbal home, man, that's your dirt. Leave it on there. But I haven't personally had much experience. I do think it's important to address this while we're talking about A's with the new Avidus stuff. The new fancy Zildjian Avidus stuff is very high end. Charge you an arm and half a leg for it, typically. Nowadays, is supposed to be more genuine to the cymbal making process and all of the, the stuff they were doing back then versus
Back in the
now.
day?
Back in the day, yeah. So, but I've heard sound demos, samples, and stuff, but I don't want to speak too much about those just because I don't have personal experience, and that's what it's all about. In my mind, is our impartiality with experience is what we can offer people.
I know that you're a big Zildjian guy, John. Have you ever visited the Zildjian factory by any chance?
Oh, long time ago.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I thought maybe I heard that story, so you did go check it out. Mm-hmm. Was that when they were in the single room in a little hut?
Flew over to Turkey. And,
No, that would be cool. But no. What was it? Norwell?
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yes.
Yep,
And
okay.
Massachusetts.
that was, just in the travels and meeting people, the same routine as it should be always, networking, meeting people. And if you're in the environment, it's good to take advantage. Just never be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, like, oh, he's important and all that kind of stuff. I'm all shy and everything, which I certainly was. But,
Who was there? Who are you referring to? Was there someone there at the Zildjian factory when you were there?
that was, what's his name was there? From Berkeley. Oh my gosh, there goes the name. It'll be here shortly.
We got time.
The Rolodex.
We got time.
It'll come around. Oh my goodness, that's the worst. Why would I even hesitate? But I do have that issue. But anyway, yeah, he was present. And I just remember, like,
Mystery
wow,
man.
that's,
Oh yeah, see,
There he
I could
is.
tell.
That's
I'm like,
that
wait a
guy.
minute, what are you saying?
that guy. And but other than that, I was with a couple guys that were some local players, and they were familiar, they were connected, they were homies, and all that. So, hey, you want to go to the plant?
Oh, that would be awesome.
And sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, it was Alan Dawson.
There you go.
Sorry.
There it is.
But there was a star. He was
Yeah.
in there and hanging a bit. And I saw him play quite a bit up there. Lenny's on the Turnpike. And I'd have a day off, and he'd be there with, he played all the time. He was there a lot. And so, of course, it would be important, if you're in town and Alan's playing at a jazz club, you would be going. And I was starting to get into the jazz thing at that point. I always had interest, and I would play some of those rhythms, maybe, depending, in some parts of my career, some of the years I'd had an opportunity, and then being in towns where they had some good jams, and I would go and have the experience, sign up, never get a chance to play though. Usually that would be the case because they would be big jams.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot of players, but eventually, I can tell this one story about in Vegas, and it was a jam. Monk Montgomery was running it before he created the Jazz Society in Vegas. And at this club where they would start after midnight and sometimes go to 6, 7 in the morning, that kind of
Wow.
thing. And some of the great jazz artists would come by. A lot of people played there. And I started going there. I'd finish my show and I'd head over. And I think the place was called the Black Magic back then, I think. Anyway. It had many different names over the years. There's a whole bunch of stories there, for sure. But anyway,
Anything to do with the mob?
no. There you go with that thing. Yeah, no. It was a different vibe.
Ixnay. Yeah.
So I don't know how many times I went. First time I went, I listened. I was scared to death, and I kind of got a feel for the thing. And then a couple of the guys, we went, and they were really good players. I was just connecting with a couple of the guys in town, and so they said, "We're going to the jam, man. We're coming." I go, "Yep," and I'd go and I'd listen to this incredible music because there was some serious playing going on there with named jazz artists, and they were just there to have fun. So you can imagine it went to another
And this was like
level.
the after hours club,
Yeah,
right? Where like
totally.
the industry dudes were going.
Yeah.
Like
There were, yep,
Heavy hitters that
Yeah.
just finished all their shows.
Yeah.
there were some of those, but the majority of us were just sitting there listening to
Yeah.
the real jazz artists.
Wow.
Because you would be hesitant to even go on, to go
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
But
just
then-
hearing you're like, you're going. I don't know how old you were, but you're like, you're a great drummer, and even you are going. Oh my God, I'm blown away.
I
I'm
know.
scared.
Well,
Jeez,
no,
I-
because
Yeah,
They
It
wouldn't
is-
let me in the place.
no, me either.
just having a little bit of an understanding, like chops weren't too much of a problem. Everybody had chops, and being able to play quick, and of course the tempos, they were very quick. And can you ride? Can you endure? That kind of thing. Yeah, but that would be about it because there was a limit. You were listening as much as you could to the art form, but you still hadn't done it at that level. I'm talking like what I did, maybe a light cocktail stuff and maybe some big band stuff. That was pretty much it. Not the real serious
Yeah.
playing tunes.
Those guys
and
are like the
really,
next
really
level guys.
blasting. So then it became a place where, you know, they would have an opportunity. They would give an opportunity to us, you know, the guys.
So what year?
The guys
what-
from the strip.
What time period is this? What year
that,
is this?
Oh, that's late '60s.
Okay, just for context, because we know what time period you're talking about, but
Yeah,
people tuning in are like, "What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Is this
well,
what Vegas is like now?" And it's
'50s. Well,
this
not
is
really, but
different.
But the
ballgame.
'50s and '60s, there was quite a bit of jazz going on, because a lot of the guys that came into town to start doing the shows and everything were jazz drummers,
Yeah,
and that was what was happening back then. You know, because they all had that under their belt. You know, they played the swing bands and all that kind of stuff, the big bands.
Yeah.
The '40s and '50s, all that stuff
That's
going
it.
on, and then things started changing a little bit with with the rock and roll thing coming in, and whatever that was about, drawing on all kinds of different rhythms.
But-
And a lot of it was the shuffle vibe. A lot of that happened in the studios, and they were jazz guys who were doing that
yeah.
because they could play that, and they just kind of straightened it up a little bit. But they still had that lilt in the
But-
vibe,
yeah.
you know, through that time period. There was still that thing going on. You could hear it. But anyway, getting back to the jam thing,
Yeah.
when you would sign up, I mean, you knew you were going to be there for a while, depending on when you got there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there'd be a list a mile long, and it was kind of cool because everybody knows everybody. They know what you're about. It hits the streets pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then you're allowed, so to speak, to maybe hang or something.
Yeah.
Because there's some mutual respect or whatever. Because if you couldn't play a little bit, you wouldn't be there. There was that kind of thing that went on. And then you would have people that would network and start talking about you, what you're good at, what you're lousy at, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because they didn't pull any punches, but there was a lot of respect and a lot of people that cared for one another, and they were all pros, and they knew how to handle the situation.
Yeah.
You know, they knew what you could do and what you couldn't do, and it was just really, it was a nice vibe.
How long did it take until
Nice community.
you were able to get up there and play with these guys?
Oh, I probably went to the jam a half a dozen times,
Okay.
easily.
Were you invited then?
And then there was starting to just
Right,
open
right
it up
at
a little.
6:30 a.m.
Yeah.
before
But, you know,
before everyone went
right,
home.
Right.
Once his
Play a tune
reputation
and go have breakfast.
once his reputation is known, it's like, okay, I know Johnny from he plays here and there, you know, and all of a sudden you're showing up at the gig. So you're just saying that it's like everyone's talking, and
Yeah.
it's almost like your reputation precedes you in a weird,
A little way.
In a weird
Yeah, and
way.
they
It's
know,
like,
well,
it's
when you're gonna
well, John
go.
can
Right.
get up, and then you're invited up.
Yeah, and there was that. It was almost like a window they had set up, and of course it was further along, and it would depend who was showing up too.
Right.
And that's why you really wouldn't get a chance to play, because you would have, especially when a lot of the heavyweights would be in town playing, and they'd be making the jam. Then a lot of the people they were supporting and a lot of the stars would show up at this jam.
Yeah.
So
So
it's kind of
everybody
like-
could be there.
You know what this reminds me of? Is stand-up comedy stuff. Like you get bumped. You know what I mean? It's like the list.
Yeah.
Like someone shows up, a heavy hitter shows up, you get bumped. You know, that
Sure.
kind of,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think it goes without saying that everyone was probably sharing a house kit, and everyone was playing Zildjian cymbals, Zildjian A's.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's how integral this stuff
Yeah,
is.
those
to,
guys
like,
aren't loading in different drums. Like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
John, you're up. Hold on, let me go out to
hang
my
on,
car.
let me get my
Let me get my drums.
stack
Let
and
me get my drums out of my car.
Yeah,
Walking
let me
in.
walk in with cases.
I
walk
need to
in
play
with
my
cases.
drums, bro. I need to play my drums.
No, that would not happen.
Walk in with cases, being like,
If you-
"Yeah,
if
where
you-
do I load in?
That's it.
Where do I load in?" Remember?
Yeah.
Across the street.
Yeah. We have a funny story about that. We'll touch on it briefly because we're laughing about it. So there was an open mic that happened at the Sandwich Factory across the street. It still happens.
Yeah, it still happens, right.
But anyway, quick story time. Christy Engel, teacher here, she's been on the show, was going over and going to play with her band or something.
Mm-hmm.
So Goody and I had a band at the time. And we were like, yeah, let's go over and like hang. She's like, yeah, come out, play a couple songs. So we get over there, we sign up on the list or whatever. Christy's band signs up, like,
And
but it
more
very
people do, too.
quickly,
Fill
very
up.
quickly fills up, like early, right? So then, I forget his name, but he's a local guitar teacher here. Signs up, like shows up, and
He was
is looking for
expecting.
slots.
He was expecting
it to be empty.
it to be empty.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
in previous weeks it had been empty. So he
Absolutely.
was.
He was trying to give his students a chance to jam and play.
Right.
So I guess there's like going to be a band playing, and then they sit in or whatever. But we're sitting there, and we watch this happen. So before he even gets there, these students start showing up. None of these students have ever played a gig out.
Yeah.
It's very obvious, right? So some of them have, like, they're all bringing their guitar cases in. Some of them
Amps.
bring their own amp.
Yeah.
Some of them have, like, microphone stands, like, if they, you know, like...
And it
they-
was all filled.
And they brought it, but they brought all this stuff in alone. And they're like, literally, we saw this one poor kid literally had his amp like a stand,
man.
and his amp a guitar stand, and his guitar hard case, right? And he's standing behind the bar, and like the only like the way that's set up over there, it's like the only way you can get to the stage and to the bathrooms, and then to like it's like there's a bar and there's a wall, right? And he just set his stuff down. Just
Yeah.
right in the way. Just like I felt so bad for him. I like wanted to go over. And luckily, someone helped him, but I was going to go over and like pick
Yeah.
the stuff up because I was like, "Not now, kid. Not
Yeah.
here. This is like you're on the freeway right now. Like,
Yeah.
do not stop moving."
The
you know?
service station is right there.
Exactly.
It's like this is
There's,
the
like,
way.
exits. There's
Yeah.
on and off ramps. A circle. Yeah, and he like just set all his stuff down. He's just looking around, waiting for his teacher to walk in. Man, that was a situation. But
Yeah.
sadly, then it was filled up, so they couldn't perform. But that was not the right situation for that
Right,
sort of
yeah.
thing. But Zildjian A's, man.
Yeah,
Zildjian A symbols.
There be the Zildjians.
There be the
And
symbols.
usually a Gretsch. Yeah, 4-piece Gretsch set,
Nice scratch kit.
you know, and set up, and you played it as it was, and it was set up correctly. You know,
Yeah.
no matter what, it was correct. If you wanted to adjust the snare, yeah, sure. But other than that, you know, just play, kid.
That's
And
it.
you
know,
still do
that's
the
it.
tilt forward too. You know, when you play your snare, I notice you know
A little bit of an angle.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit of an
A
angle.
little bit
Yeah.
of a traditional grip.
Yeah, because of that.
Yep.
You know, it's the way it is.
Yep.
It's
It
the
is.
way
It's
it's the
comfort,
way it
man.
happened. It's the
Ergonomics.
way it was created.
That's right.
You know.
That's why
Why are
the
you
snare drum
holding your
stand
sticks like
has
that,
a
man?
tilter on it. Yeah.
There it is.
That's
Yeah.
why. So you can tilt it.
But yeah, I just
Logical.
think about, you know, some of those, because there were some really fine drummers and a bunch of cats from all over the country. There were quite a lot of people that ended up, they were in Vegas and they went to L.A., you know, so there was a little bit more action there because there was action. You know, everybody was looking to
Yeah.
get into recording and movies and stuff. But a lot
Now
of
everyone's
lot
leaving
of the cats, yeah. But a lot of the cats, they were East Coast guys.
Nice.
You know, there was a lot of that, and
Cool.
it was just an amazing, amazing vibe. Like I said, the brotherhood of drummers. You know,
it.
everybody
What-
kind of knew. And my good fortune, I don't know whether we want to go there now.
Let's wait.
Okay.
Let's wait because
Okay,
we're going to
but
go
bank
there.
that.
All right.
Bank that. We're going to go there. Let's get through a couple quick questions and then we can really
Yeah.
unload on some of this stuff.
I'm getting a little warm over here.
Shawn,
Yes.
quick question. This is a joke quick question, so you answer it while I turn the fan on because
Okay,
everyone's
yeah.
sweating. This is not a real quick question for the episode, but we talked about it. Quick question.
Yeah.
Where do you keep your drum heads?
That's funny. Upstairs. On my drums. I keep them on my drums. Well, the reason I texted you that is because it just popped into my head. And I'll just text you random things that just come to my
Yeah.
mind. But that's one of the most common questions I get asked here at the shop is
Yeah.
they'll take a walk around, especially if it's someone's first time in the shop,
In the new location,
in the new
especially.
location, and they
Yeah.
go, "Hey, where do you guys keep your drum heads?"
This is where we keep them. We keep them upstairs.
Yes.
We'll grab them for you. Just debunk that right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully
So, yeah.
do a little bit of damage control there. Basically, it's one of the most confusing, boring things to make someone search for it for themselves. We know where everything's at.
Sure.
We can just grab it for you. It's
Yeah.
like most people know what they want, or if they don't know what they want, they're going off our recommendations. So
Yeah.
there's no need to have that on the main floor.
That's
Bunch
right.
of cardboard.
Yeah.
You don't need it down there.
Oh. It's a perfect
So anyway,
spot for 'em.
that's not the real quick question.
Oh.
Here is the real quick question that I want us all to weigh in on. All right, guys. Quick question. Why do my drums sound better at the drum shop?
because I tuned them.
Agree.
Because Shawn tuned them. That is not the answer.
Oh. What is the answer?
I don't know, but it can't be that simple.
Oh, okay.
No. And I had someone come in the other day and brought in 2 snare drums, actually. They brought two of their snare drums and said, hey, can you take a look at these? I don't think they're sounding quite right. And I played them, and they sounded beautiful. They sounded so good.
Right.
And there is the angle that we'll go with a couple angles here, but this is one of my angles is don't overthink it.
Right.
I think a lot of the time you can get in your own head about your drum sound, and snare drums in particular are like a hotbed for this of this just doesn't sound quite right. And you should try to figure out what's causing it to sound different, everything like that. But sometimes what you need is a fresh perspective from another drummer. And it might not be the drum, it might be your rack tom, depending on where it's tuned, causes a lot of noise. It might be just the area that you have it in, because the room affects the sound so much. You know, there's a lot of different answers here, but sometimes it's best to just take a deep breath, step away from your drums, especially if you're putting new heads on or you're tweaking them before or after a gig or something like that, to really just step away if you've been in that tuning mode, focused for so long, and
Your tunnel
frustrated.
vision.
As soon as you get that tunnel vision and that like frustration starts to build up in your head, take a walk.
Okay.
Take a walk.
Yeah, I don't think drum tuning is anything to really get too crazy about, and I think most folks over-analyze it, you know.
Yeah.
And usually it's the opposite. You know, they'll bring a snare drum in that just needs to be adjusted. The snares are whacked off, you know, or like the drum is detuned. It just needs to be adjusted. You understand what I'm saying?
I know.
You understand what I mean?
I think I understand what you're saying.
Also, what you just said earlier about, you know, when someone brings a drum in to get it tuned and it already sounds great, you're just like,
Yeah.
dude, this sounds awesome. But for whatever reason, they think in their head, hey, you know, it doesn't sound like it does, especially modern music right now. Everything's so compressed and overproduced.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, there's nothing, I love a nice ringy drum, like, especially like the old records back in the olden days. Like, you hear those drums, man. They sound like ringy and organic. You could tell that the room that's reverberating, like it's just
Drums
you
are
can hear it
singing
all,
out.
man.
Yep.
It's like everything's just too compressed, too perfect.
Everything's rolled off.
Everything's rolled off, and it's just too perfect. And drums should sound, organic. It should have some resonance to them and ring.
I mean,
and sound like a drum.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I understand that that's not everyone's opinion.
Right.
People, a lot of people have in their mind that I want to sound exactly like that record.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to go for. And you can do that. There's plenty, believe me, there's plenty selection of drum heads, different ways we can tune. We can help you out with that. There's dampening out the wazoo and every inside the drum, outside the drum, mounted to the drum, stuck on the drum. There's ways that we can really make your drum sound like just about anything. The question is really, in my mind, the why behind the question.
I know why. Because when you bring it to a drum store, the reason it sounds better in a drum store is because the drum is surrounded by other drums. And when it's surrounded by other drums, it just sounds better. So what you need to do is buy more drums and have them around.
Yeah. That's the solution.
And that's the solution. And then your drums sound as good as they do in a drum store.
If your drum does not sound that good, you need to look around it does sound good in the drum store. Look around, count the number of drums in the room, and buy that many drums.
Well, I always thought the same thing too when you're testing cymbals. Sometimes you have to get them away from other cymbals, so much around and how it resonates. Well, that's not going to sound that way when you get it home behind your set.
Yep.
So it's good to kind of take
separate
a little bit, take a drum away from where it is, and maybe it sounds like crap in your basement because the acoustics in your basement suck. That's a lot of it too.
Yeah.
So then you bring it in here and I hit it and it's like, dude, this sounds great. Well, the acoustics in here
rule. The whole store is a drum shell.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to resonate. The whole room.
As you're talking, John, I can literally hear the cymbals vibrating. Like I can hear because I'm standing right next to them. I can hear them, and it's one of those things that
vibes.
It's sound waves, man. The room does affect your sound. I always say that the number one thing that affects the sound of your drums are your drums. And the second thing is the room before tuning. The second thing is literally the room.
That's right.
It is so important where your drums are, especially when you're recording. Forget about it. That's half the stuff, nowadays that I do with recording. The guitars and the bass, everything's basically plugged direct in, and they'll modify it afterwards with technology. They can make it sound like it's coming out of this amp or in this room, have this many tweeter, all sorts of stuff. It's basically okay,
cheating.
What room do we want? Yeah. No, it's what room do we want? Because we need to get the drums to sound this way.
That's right.
It's that important that it's if you didn't have drums in your songs, if you weren't recording acoustic drums in your songs, that's why there's so many albums recorded in people's bedrooms that sound incredible, is because they require something that perhaps vocals and the treatment of the room and the reverberation of the room is so important to them, where it's not nearly that important to some guitars or different things like that.
I remember John telling me a story that did you not record playing on boxes? Is that a true story? Am I getting it wrong or right?
No. That's one of my favorites.
You did a recording on boxes.
That's one of my favorites.
But that's what it called for, right?
Like cardboard boxes?
Yep.
There you go.
So it was recording studio in Orlando, Florida, and we're doing late recording. It's actually one of the engineers there, and he had some music. He was a good guitar player. And then he got a bunch of us. I did some sessions there. And then he got we were friends, and got a bunch of us together to do some recording late at night after everybody else was out of there. And so we did this a bunch of times, just different things. That we were having fun and some nice writing. That was good friend. That was Mike Redmond, good engineer, genius. Anyway, so we're doing this, and while we're doing this, it's kind of one of those nights where everybody's partying. A little bit of a party going on, and coming up with some different ideas, and messing up and laughing at each other, and just having a good time. It was pretty laid back. And then we got into a discussion about some of the recording techniques, and everything was pretty flat and pretty dry back then. Okay, really, just we're talking about drum sounds now, real drums, real sounds. Okay, but there was a period where some of it, I'm going to, pull that front head off the bass drum, stuff a pillow in there, go, that's what's happening. And there were sessions, and we were just making fun of it, even though some of them were well done, the sound, and they were heavyweight players that were doing it. Their hit songs, and they had these really flat, dry, you know what? It sounds like a cardboard box. What do you think? And so, like I said, we were partying. We're in that, you know what? You're right. Let's see what we can do with that. So because of equipment coming in, large corrugated boxes, that kind of thing, we said, let's give it a shot. So there was this one big box and got a little hole in here, could put a pedal, just put a piece of wood, put a pedal, and so you could hit this thing with a bass drum pedal, snare drum stands, couple corrugated boxes. Sure,
Yeah.
stick them on there. Okay? Stick them on there.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what we did, and then we recorded it. We recorded the music.
Yeah.
But see, that's what
And-
you had to do back in the day. If you wanted your drums to sound like cardboard boxes, you had to record playing on cardboard boxes. If you wanted your drums to sound like they were recorded in a tiled bathroom,
Yeah.
you needed to go record your drums in a tiled bathroom.
right.
Now you can just get on your computer and go
Cardboard
yeah.
box
cardboard
samples.
box sample,
Okay.
boom, tiled room, boom. You know, now you can just do all that.
Well,
but back
yeah.
in the day,
had
ding,
to do
ding,
it
ding, you
yourself.
had to do it yourself.
This was just a joke.
I know.
You know.
But how did it turn out?
Oh, it was great.
See?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Boom.
Yeah, because these guys, the engineers, the guys were
Yeah.
good. They were really good people. Florida had an immense bunch of sound guys.
And gators.
I don't know what that was about, but there were a whole bunch, especially South Florida.
And
Just
gators.
Geniuses. And gators. And they just had a way, and they would, manipulate these things. And it was analog. I mean, come on. It was just, you had to kind of know what you were doing, too.
Yeah.
And,
you can't wait.
and
That's
they'd stick
expensive.
some microphones on, a little processing, stick a little reverb on that. Go ahead, whack them, Johnny.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's great.
That was it. And that was a joke, of course, but it was fun. It was fun because we were making fun of the drum sounds. It sounded
Yeah.
like they were playing on cardboard boxes. So we set some up and we recorded them, and that's what it sounded like.
But sometimes that's what you have to do. Like it just the Beatles come together reminds me of that too, because I don't know how they achieve. I think they put a blanket over the drum set to get that
Yeah,
effect.
they
Is
threw
that
some
right?
towels over,
So
essentially, yeah.
sometimes you just have to do those little tricks. You're like, you know what? It needs a little something extra here, or like those cool studio tricks. Now you just press
Yeah.
a button. But I love
It's fun.
the practical solutions.
That's that in my mind. If you're recording fairly regularly, I mean, I just did it on weekends. The last time I did it regularly, so it wasn't every single day. Like it wasn't like I had a week in the studio. It was like home recording, but doing the best we can. You get it if you get in a funk, something like that helps. Like I've done pillowcases on drums and stuff to
Yeah.
get a certain sound. I've recorded like for percussion effects like change in your pocket.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like the world's rhythmic. It's
That's
it's
right.
all fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
There you
all
go.
fun. It's like
There you go. Good
it's-
deal there.
that's
and I
it.
just remember you telling me
We
that
should
story
start
back
doing
then, so
that.
I was like,
Yeah, you remember.
yeah, I remembered
great.
it.
That's a great
But
story.
also, it reminded me of something else too. When we got in, Roland had made these the triggers that you put on your cajon.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you, like,
Yeah,
the-
you trigger. So the trigger, just to explain a little bit, you clip it in the sound hole in the back of the cajon,
Right.
And then it just has a basic electronic to it that separates low and high end. So
Yeah.
it'll recognize with a cajon. Typically, you just
Yeah.
have your bass tone, you have your high tone,
Sure.
and then it would either play a sampled sound or affect it,
or it would act as a mic too.
or it would act as.
But
a mic.
yeah, it's triggering a sampled sound, much like an electronic drum set. And we've stuck that on a bass drum head box and played it, and it sounded freaking great. It was just so funny. Like
Yeah.
it's triggering the sounds. It sounded like orchestral, like music or whatever. The timpani is like, it's amazing. Those triggers and the samples, and it's
Yeah.
just amazing that the technology that we have at our fingertips right now. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. It's constantly getting crazier. What is the best room you guys have ever played or recorded in or performed at? Or one that just stands out to you as being the absolute best. And I'll let you know, I'll start, because I've had the opportunity of playing in 4 different barns, and that is my favorite thing ever. Like playing inside of a giant wooden room like that, with my drums have never sounded better than in that space where it's open, it's a large room, you've got all the reflections, but all the good reflections. Sometimes you have a stone wall at either end, sometimes it'll just be all wood or, metal roofing or whatever isn't the best. But that is like I would love that. I want to own a house one day that has a barn, and I'll just put my drums in there. Like that is like my absolute favorite. There's a lot of studios that are built in barns and like renovate
absolutely.
because of that sound.
I was gonna say,
and like that is my number one. I mean, I've played on different stages, different outside, indoors, all sorts of things. My drums have sounded good. It's always nice being mic'd up, but in a barn, like I could sit there and play for hours.
I'm going to say it would have to be a club. Like, I'll just say probably one of the times I played the Chameleon where it was literally a packed house, like with the Misfits or Bowling for Soup, that I had the opportunity to do some really cool shows where there was a lot of people there, and the drum, we were opening, so I had my drums dialed in, and everything sounded great, and just the power behind all of the drums, and then. I've also played the Chameleon Club and different clubs where there's no one there, and it echoes, and that's kind of sucks. But when there's a lot of people there, and the whole balcony is filled, and there's people far as the eye can see, that's a good feeling. That it sounds good, and everything's just coming together, and the sound system and everything else. That's I wanted to play in a band like that, and when I'm doing that, I'm like, that's what.
And also. I know, just as a note, I've talked to sound guys, and the amount of adjustments that they have to do between sound check and the actual show because of the natural dampeners of all the people in the room.
Yeah.
It's amazing sometimes how much they have to bring up or pull back, depending on what it is, frequency-wise, to really cut through in that same exact space, but with just different people in there.
John, what's your ideal place? Like as far the question was like,
your favorite place to play or your ideal room.
Okay.
I don't know what to say in that regard because there were a lot of venues and a lot of rooms back in the day that they were set up, to contain the music, I remember a couple lounges in Vegas where they had curtain baffles that they could use to be able to tone a band down when they needed it was a little bit of that just to kind of, or open it up a little bit. There were a couple things like that happened. But the venues were, you just didn't like the echo thing, the bouncing around. Trying to remember the worst would have been, that was Third Stream. We opened for Spirogyra at the
Third Stream,
the big building, at in Harrisburg. I'll think of that then too. I should know it, but it's kind of a round. Ish room and stage and the roundish. And I remember that baby was echoing all over the place. And
that's tough.
It's really tough.
Yeah.
That was pretty ugly.
Sounds like there's another drummer competing with you playing in a room somewhere else.
You're like,
what's going on?
Who is playing?
Exactly, yeah.
He's just a little
off.
He's screwing me up.
I remember.
Don't listen to yourself play.
I remember the place. Anyway, that I remember as being really problematic.
Yeah.
Trying to.
And it's
then there's speaking of round, down toward Philly, Royersford. I don't know if any of those guys would ever hear this. Can't remember any of the particular, but I recorded there with guitarist Steve Giordano, and the room was a geodesic. It was a dome.
Shout out.
And that was wild. And especially having that environment with the music we were playing. It was all Giordano stuff. He wrote some crazy, great music.
Did you all live record together, so you were all playing at the same time?
Yeah, that was actually Third Stream with Steve Giordano. So it was Stroman, Miller, Steve, and myself. And we did, Steve was hooked up. I think the guy that owned the studio was a student of Steve's. And we went in and recorded some of Steve's stuff. And it was awesome. It was so cool. It was really different. the way the sound would move and go to the opposite side of the room. We started experiencing that, you know, like what I'm playing here on this side of the dome, you hear just really very clear on the other side of the dome, the way
Yeah.
the sound, the waves, you know, all the vibes moved
The
around that
nodes and
room.
the connection points.
It
of,
was
yeah.
crazy cool. So that was a wonderful experience. And the music, of course, the music was real good. Music was wonderful. It was great to play that stuff. And I mean, that was, you know, some good jazz. But the best work I ever did was when I had the opportunity to record at Criteria Studios in Miami. So that's a whole nother level.
What is that? Is was it a special room or was it just the engineers knowing how to like?
Well, the
Dial it
rooms,
in.
I worked in all the rooms.
Okay.
And so I got to kind of experience. Now, the main room would be, what would really be cool.
Yeah.
Because they could record orchestras,
Oh wow.
small orchestra.
Yeah.
It was very, very cool stuff in that regard. And I was just in and out for, you know, a couple things, couple bands. And I did a commercial. I did
Jingle.
well, no, it was a theme. It was I guess it was a theme song for a Spanish soap opera. And it was just cool to be there because of the famous people that were there. And I was starting to meet a couple of people in the Miami area. I was down there doing some work in South Florida, hanging out for a while. I got to hear Jaco Pastorius when he was playing with Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders. You know, who's this nut?
Who's this nut?
I mean, just everybody. It was a lot of good bands. Tommy Strand's band, I think Jacko played with him too. So I'd go out and hear those bands in the clubs where they'd be playing, and I'd just be losing my mind because they were really, really good. They were tight, good show, great musicians. A lot of those guys went on to be studio guys that did the stuff with, the Miami Sound Machine. Those guys.
Miami Sound Machine.
Just lots of good people, and then every once in a while you'd see a star, you know, because I was there, you know, several days maybe working, and there was always heavyweights recording there.
Yeah.
That was the Bee Gees. That was a big deal there, and there was a lot of great artists, and there were several other studios that were doing well there. They had great sound people, and they could really get it done.
And they knew the room too. That's the thing about those recording studios is like they knew absolutely everywhere. They're like, put your bass drum right here because this is the spot.
And you know, I was
You're right.
as listening to John here and we're talking about rooms and all this kind of stuff. It just dawned on me when I realized how important the room is to sound was when I was in high school. Right before my band was going to play in I think it was the 10th grade talent show, right? Mm-hmm. We had to go in and audition. So I brought my drums in and we played they had these little studios that were like acoustically padded and all this kind of stuff. So we went in and set my drums up and it sounded so good. I remember how great it sounded in there. I've not thought about that in a long time. And then he came in and watched us play, and we were like, "Dude, can we keep playing in here right now?"
Yeah.
And we're like, "Yeah, go ahead." And I remember remarking to the guys in my band, I was like, "This sounds so good in here." But that was like, And then I started collecting egg cartons to hang up on the ceiling and such. I never did do that at my parents' house, but I wanted to do that to create my own studio.
Yeah, I'm about to do that because I'm going to do some recording in a couple weeks, and where the room my drums are in now is like this small office.
Yeah,
but it's the liveliest.
Yeah,
it is insane.
A little bit of foam goes a long way.
It's like stuff like that.
I have some foam.
Treat the corners a little bit.
Yeah,
some of those, you know what I mean. Stuff like that really does help cut down on those reflections. It is kind of a bummer that like a lot of these ideal rooms are big rooms.
Yeah. Because
your drums always get shoved in a small room. I feel like that's consistent through like everyone, through everyone's, unless it's in a basement or a garage, but hopefully you can work your way out of that. It's like, what is the smallest amount of space that we can allot to the drums so that he's happy, so that I can utilize all this other space for other living. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it is funny though. It's like, I wish there was, I don't know.
Smallest.
We need a big We need a big room.
Your drums are in the smallest room of your house, probably.
Yes,
There you go.
they are. Let's change that. I don't know
I
how
know.
to change that.
But we need to change that.
we need something else. I need to find a hidden room. If you've seen videos of people like renovating, they like find a hidden room in their house. Like,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean?
No,
It's like
there's
I'm like,
all-
okay,
Yeah, right.
You didn't realize that there
Yeah,
was a
sure.
giant attic above your house. Like, you didn't do the math. But anyway, let's dive into some of John's story and pick his brain a little bit more in Between the Plies. This is it, Between the Plies. This is where I never really thought about the implication of this, but we are really, well, I thought about it, but I haven't really, the legit translation, what's that? The literal translation
Yeah.
of it would mean that we are separating John's plies and really getting in there,
Yeah,
seeing what he's
sure, yeah.
made of,
That's right. Yeah. There's a little
That's
bit of birch,
scary.
a little
It's
bit of
a little-
mahogany. That's
a little
scary.
mahogany.
That's scary.
It's scary. But back in the day, they used, back in the day, what they
Well,
used
that's
for
the
shells.
thing. It is that back in the day. And, I'm so grateful for just having the experience I had. I had a passion, my heart. I loved the drums. I really was in a place, I guess just through my naivete, I was willing to pack a bag and see you later.
Yeah. That's
that's
kind of
what-
the theme.
That is a big theme between people who have had careers in music, not just side jobs or side hustles or this or that. Careers in music is they are willing to do that, and not necessarily just like generic blanket, oh, you got to be willing to sacrifice to get what you want, but you're willing to leave. You're willing to leave where you grew up, and in most cases, it's head out west, head towards the work is a huge theme. You know what I mean? And then you develop your career in that way. But just the act of you making that decision and making that move puts
Getting
you
in
ahead.
the car and driving to Philly.
Right.
I mean,
Just getting in the car, man.
that's it. Get in the car, drive to Philly. Where did the Philly lead? Then where did that
Well,
lead? Then where did that lead? That's it.
Well, that was where things started to happen, of course, moving along, making the contacts, the networking approach. But I did work here, I just, started out as a child. And then I became like interested in this rhythm thing. It really grabbed a hold of me. And that was because of, hanging out with my father, band director at F&M, the marching band, the concert band. He brought a bunch of great artists, many trumpet players, world-class guys, to play with the concert band at F&M, because Pop was pretty amazing. He could really work it. He was about the community, so he was pretty special. And I had the opportunity to hang out, and he started seeing that I liked a lot of this stuff. So he supported it with the music. We'd go to New York. I'd catch Broadway shows. I'd see the drummers in the pit playing the show and was just absolutely amazed. All those kind of things as a kid. And then Pop would go, if you're going to play the drums. Well, first off, I was out of control around the house, beating on everything, the usual thing.
Yeah.
The pots and pans and all that. And my mother said, you have to get this boy a drum. So there was an old drum with no snares on it, a marching drum, sitting in the corner of the band room. And so that was what...
we were talking about that. We have one
Pop-
downstairs right now that's very similar. He was
Yeah,
saying.
yep.
Old Ludwig drummer.
And so like that was, the beginning of it, because all I wanted to do then was try and duplicate what I heard the guys playing in the band. And then hanging out there, and then, maybe somebody'd show me a couple things, and that was very cool. And then if you're going to do this drum thing, you do it right. So my father got me lessons with Bob Leiter at Troops Music House in Lancaster, and I went there and got a few fundamentals together.
So many
working-
guys
it.
went
Working-
through Bob Leiter.
With Bob? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was tremendous. Yeah, he
So
was the
many.
man. He was the man.
And then years later, I ended up playing in a band with his grandson, Eric Forberger, and that was his grandfather, and we put
Oh,
that
really?
together.
I didn't ever put that together.
Yeah, we put that together. I think Rick shared a picture of Bob Leiter, on Facebook or something like that,
Yeah.
and then Eric made a commented on it or something like that, and it was like, "That's my grandfather." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's crazy,"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
He was
Yeah.
he was a great man. And so there was, a couple things to stir the pot. I learned how to count. Oh, you have to count, do you? And that
It's fundamental. It's the
That-
same thing you're teaching students
That's
today.
right.
absolutely, it's absolutely necessary.
I know.
You have to. So that was the deal at that point. And I played in school, elementary school, middle school. I did not play in high school. And it was fun. And then I started, trying to really get the drum set going on. I'm not going to go back and like my first drum set that I pieced
yeah,
together.
yeah.
I'm not going to. But then when I finally got like a real drum set,
Yeah, sure.
and whatever my age was at that point, because I was 7, 8, probably 9, 10, and so I'm starting to get something
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, you
And I'm
started
just-
early, man.
I'm just loving it, and so I dedicated myself to this chop thing because of the marching band, evidently what they were playing, and what Bob had given me, the 13 essential drum rudiments. So I worked them like crazy till I could actually play it.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 12, I could do that. Now I didn't know what to do with it, but I could play it. My time was pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So that was it. That was pretty much it.
So then at that point where you're just like, all right, I got to finish school and then I'm out. Then I'm
well-
going for it, or
Well, at that point, I was hoping to maybe play in a band or whatever, and that's kind of like what you
That's-
want to do when to
Yeah.
play in a band. And so, I think I was maybe 14, and friends, guys hanging out, and David Lee Baum was a good friend that was very helpful in finding some of the musicians.
And you're
over
networking
a
down
number,
in Philly
number
and
of
everything.
years.
You're
No,
going,
nothing in
yet?
Philly
Okay.
yet.
Oh,
No,
okay.
Yeah,
no.
he's-
I'm just
that's
going.
what I'm saying. He's getting his stuff together when he's
I'm
like
going-
12, dude, and like 14 years old.
And now I'm playing with the Firelighters.
Firelighters.
Oh man, how about them guys? Instrumental
Firelighters.
group playing.
It's good. Good
What
name.
was popular back then? It was the Ventures and the
Okay.
Duels. We played all the Ventures music. It was two brothers, and trying to remember because Davey was in on that, and Donnie Hall, I believe, was in. Oh boy, yeah, Don did some, and Mose and Ronnie Sulzbach, lead guitar, rhythm guitar, great guys, and I was just this naive kid coming over to their house on King Street for rehearsal, running these tunes. And what was good about this, guys, is because they wanted to cover those Ventures tunes note for note. Now, the drum parts weren't that hard,
Yeah.
but there was still an arrangement that
Sure.
had to be
Yeah.
observed. And that was where I started getting the drift and being interested and starting to listen to more music and understanding that there is structure to all this. So I gave that some attention, listening to all styles of music and try and figure out what's going on here. What's the structure? What about these resolution points? How does this happen? Like it's happening consistently, but I wasn't
Yeah.
able to really pull it together yet, but I gave it attention, and eventually that helped me get to a place where I could start figuring out some of the styles. And then I probably started, heading into Philly. I had some friends, and I go down to the record store, and I go to Music City because I thought maybe I'd see Buddy Rich because he was real good friends with Ellie Tolan, who owned. So I'd just be hanging out, and again that networking thing, and there wasn't much going on. So back home, a couple a couple things. I played with Davey. It was a Kenny Knopf's band, and we played some clubs.
So you
The
were-
Village, the
I was
615
gonna
in
say.
York.
I was gonna
Some
say,
of the clubs
what
around
were you
the area.
playing? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it was
Village.
just rock and roll and like soul, a lot of soul music, and that kind of thing was starting to happen. But I was listening to a lot of our local guys, some great bands back then. There were the local guys, that were just killing it. But anyway, the whole objective was to move on, and so eventually that's what I ended
And
up
how
Get
old
out of
were you?
town.
How old were you? Because you were young, right? You were still a teenager
Oh yeah,
when you
yeah,
hit the road.
yeah. Well, I guess how do I put it? I guess I kind of made it. I said I'm going to do this now, and I felt I could do it because I was legal. So I really put the push on when I was 18.
Got it.
I was going, and Philly, and kind of meeting people, and then that just just kind of grew from
Yeah, I was gonna
from
say
that
all
from
of a
that
sudden you
place.
get opportunities, and then I don't know when you got to Vegas, but
And again, that was late 60s, because it was the 60s that because I started, I started playing, as I consider it, professionally, and then a couple of years later, so I was 1960, so back in the day. And then by that period, and I'm getting some people that I'm meeting in Philly, and I ended up with a good band. Just that, again, networking, knowing some people, and then of course a lot of these people were being booked by the Jolly Joyce agency. Norman Joyce had the Philly office. Norman was amazing. I think at one point he probably kept 100 bands working across the country.
So at this point, what like an average tour, a more modern tour is like you start out and you kind of put your own thing together. You hop in a van, you drive around, tour. But when you're working with an agency at this time, I know there were a lot of bands.
That's the whole difference there.
Yeah, I was gonna
It's a
say
whole
I know there were a
nother
lot of
ballgame.
bands that were literally like, it's not just you. It's like, hey, we booked all these shows, and then these 4 or 5 acts are playing at all these different places. Was it that kind of thing, or was it just you guys? Hey, we're sending you out to do this. Or every time do you play with like the same set bands and stuff like that? Because I know around that time there was a lot of bookers who were like, hey, I've got these 4 bands, or like this singer and like this backing band, and then this all working together, and like not a variety show, but that style of tour. What was the tour like?
Well, it was a mix of what you just said. Let me see. My experience, because I was working with some bands, primarily these Italian boys from Philly, and they were booked through a lot of people, but Norman was handling a lot of their club dates.
Okay.
During the summer, we'd be in Wildwood for the summer, those kind of things. So that was pretty cool stuff. But anyway, good band. I'm with Norman. He's liking me. I helped him out by subbing, because at that point I was starting, like 1920, I was starting to actually kind of figure the music out. So I was somewhat, I'm not bragging at all, because I just could pull off that pop thing, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I was a quick study. So I would be playing with these bands, and I played with the hits, and that was really what got me into the Philly thing, and with Norman. And then I signed with the agency as an independent contractor.
Okay.
So then that's when
So you're a drummer for the agency.
I am.
Got it.
And
That's what I wanted.
another blessing, another thing that just fell in my lap, where I was going to be working, and I worked with a lot of bands because I'd sub. This guy, whatever, he's not doing well, so
Right.
we have to let him go, and we need somebody to fill in because we have these dates. We've got to make these
That's it.
dates. And then that's when I started freelancing in that regard with the agency. That's where I learned this stuff, along with my teachers. And then that was it, because that was the period of time where things were starting to happen a little bit. I got in my early 20s, And during that period, when I was in Philly, I had the great opportunity to study with Paul Patterson for a while, and he changed everything for me. He's the guy that did it for me.
Okay.
Because he was the guy that said, like, okay, if you're going to be a professional, you got to do this, 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 and this, and then some of this and some of this too. And so that was clarified, and some chopped things with Armand. That was because he was in the same studio building.
So to go back real quick,
Yeah, go ahead.
what were those things that he told you at that time? Here is what a professional musician is. We're telling you, this is what you need to do. What was that list? Is it basic human like professionalism stuff, or is about the drums?
It was all about that, because he would teach you all the styles and how to approach and what's needed to be able to be a professional drummer, and go to the job, and whatever you have to do, you do it. You know, you want to be able to read a little bit. You want to be able to play the rhythms, whether it's, you know, some kind of rock thing, a shuffle thing, some kind of Latin, you know, swing stuff, you know, that just those fundamentals. But then the professionalism part, that was like, yeah, this is the way you roll. You're on time, you know, you're early, you know, however you want to look at it. You're always dressed, you're always clean, you're always a gentleman. It was, you know, just the standard stuff. And
I mean, but that time you're a teenager essentially. You know what I mean? Having that, you know, obviously ideally you get that while you're growing up in the parenting of, you know, from your parents and that sort of thing. But now you're not hearing it from your mom and dad. You're hearing it from someone saying, look, you want to make it? These are the important things.
yeah.
Right? And we were talking about that earlier. Is just that is such a common thread between musicians who have done it. Is you understand, you know, your situation. Not that you haven't earned it, but you have gratitude for the situation that you're in, and then, you know, that's expressed to everyone along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the camaraderie, a lot of great people, and it's like, you know, you're in a band. It's like a family, you know, and you're traveling together, and you're striving every night to be the best you can. You know, it was always pretty cool, and that, because that was the period where because before that I didn't have a clue. You know, I was trying, but then when I got with Norman and playing for all those bands, and then going to Vegas, and then that's what really changed everything, was some of those acts that I went to Vegas with, and then I stayed one time, and I felt I could, because I had developed a small friendship with the great Bobby Morris in Vegas, and that was mainly because he was handling an act that I was with, and he was promoting them pretty strong because he thought it was a really good act, and they were good. And he liked my drumming a lot. And Bobby, of course, was originally a jazz drummer, and then, of course, he was Mr. Las Vegas. And he did everybody. He did everything.
Okay.
Way over the top. So then when I was in Vegas and I didn't have anywhere else I was going to go at that point in time, and I said, you know, not back on the road or anything. I don't have anything. I'm in town. I joined the union.
Okay,
what was that,
so once your time with the
369?
agency, kind of, like, you played in Vegas doing nights, you know, along tours and stuff like that, and then you decided this is a distinction. Then you decided I'll myself have a residency here.
Yeah, I'm going to hang out
and
for
then
a while.
You're going to hang out, right? So
Yeah.
then
and I was able to do it.
There's a Vegas union for musicians out there.
Absolutely.
And that's how you get the regular gigs, right? Not like, 'cause when I think of Vegas nowadays, I think of like huge acts that do like multiple years residencies playing the big room. But think about how many, like, that is not how.
No, I'm talking lounge acts.
That's what I'm saying.
Back in the
every
day.
single
And there were lots of lounges.
hotel,
lots
every
of bands.
casino, everything has multiple places of bands playing.
Oh, my
at
goodness,
that
yes. Lots. And so I figured I'd going to be able to freelance. Bobby was very kind. And I had a couple of things in and out of town, but I was waiting my period of time. I had you've got to wait a certain amount of time until you can really start doing any steady gigs in town. But during that
Okay.
that period of time, you can do an occasional, you can do a casual here or there. And Bobby was very, very kind to me in that regard because he ran everything. And I mean everything. So he'd know about somebody's not over here, they need an auxiliary percussionist here, whatever. And I might get a call. He might call, hey, you can go over. It's really simple. You got to do a timpani roll. You cool? I said, yeah, man. And so I played a couple of the main
Yeah,
rooms.
just gotta be
I
up.
did that a couple times.
That's the other things. Up for the
Because
challenge.
of Bobby, because of that connection there. And he believed in me, and I had that passion also. Come on, I want to experience this. I'm hungry. I'm here. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and during your time out there while you're doing these acts, the big hitters come through town. In addition to the ones that were kind of like the big hitters of town, the bigger acts were still touring in and out.
Yeah.
So do you get
Well,
any opportunities? I was gonna say,
I saw all of
you
it.
saw everything. Yeah, you saw everyone. Do you have
Yeah.
any non-audience member watching a show experience? Meaning, like, do you ever get to hang with anyone if they were after their show or anything like that? Or
There were a couple of people,
Okay.
only because of I would know some of their support crew. I'd know
Got
some
it.
of their people.
That's a connection, yeah.
And there's that connection. I'd be hanging with them, and then I'd get to go, hi, nice to meet you. That was pretty much it.
Hey, don't you have a Buddy Rich pool
Well,
story?
that was the greatest moment of my life.
There we go.
And that,
I
Buddy
don't
Rich
think I've
pool
heard
story.
this.
Yeah,
That-
see?
Greatest moment of his life.
I'm telling you.
well, why not?
Yeah.
Because I idolized the man.
yeah.
And I knew a lot about him. I knew he's tough, rough around the edges, but no, that's a lifestyle thing. It's everything. I mean, he didn't have a childhood. It's all those kind of things that you can put into place. And he'd get a little rough on occasion, but he was just incredible, and the epitome of professionalism. Just the whole thing. Anyway, so I'm walking. I'm actually at the Sands, and I'm walking through the pool area, okay? And Buddy was on a lounge chair, and I thought it was Buddy, but it didn't matter because I thought, if it's Buddy, what am I going to do? Because there he is alone.
Wow.
Now, I know if I go up and I'm a gentleman and all that,
Yeah.
he'll probably be okay, but he might shush me away. Well, I don't care. I just wanted to say hello personally.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay, and the reason he was there, he was waiting for his wife. He was waiting for Marie because her favorite beauty shop was at the Sands.
Okay.
So she was getting her hair done, and he's out by the pool hanging, waiting for his wife. And I had a few minutes to be able to approach and tell him how much I loved him, that he was just crazy, just phenomenal artist, on that instrument for sure. And he was wonderful. He was just an absolute sweetheart. The nicest man in show business at that level that I ever met.
Nice.
He was
Wow.
sincere. He was just like, oh, yeah, drummer, where you playing? I said, I'm in here in the lounge. Oh, yeah, sure, man, cool.
That's awesome.
No, that is awesome.
That is so awesome.
What if he came to see you play that night?
Oh, no, I don't think that would happen.
But that would be so awesome.
Well,
What was
yeah,
your
but-
wait? What was your opening line? Do you remember, like, what you said? Like, I imagine you didn't try to startle him. You probably just
Oh,
said,
no,
like,
no,
did you
no,
call
no,
him?
no,
Did you
no.
call him Mr. Rich?
Oh, absolutely.
I was gonna say,
Oh,
just
yeah.
go to a place of respect, like. Mr.
Oh,
Rich,
no,
sir.
no, absolutely.
Get down on your knees. Man
Well,
approached.
I certainly I would have done that. But no, the idea of just, approaching and if anything, just, I don't know exactly what I did say, but I was still respectful to the point where I just went, excuse me, Mr. Rich, I just wanted to say hello. I hope I'm not disturbing you in any way, shape, or form. I'm on my way to move. I mean, my posture was even in that way. Just
Yeah.
wanted to say hello. But he engaged.
Awesome.
He kind of went, yeah, man. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Okay. So then there was just a little bit more conversation because I'd watched him perform quite a bit out there. I would go and see him regularly
How
when
often
he was
did
in
he
town.
play in town? Would they come do like a
Oh,
week
do
or-
a lot.
Okay.
Different hotels and everything. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of work. And at that point, he was living there. And so it was kind of like, I don't want to say what the frequency was
Yeah.
for any performances. But he played the hotels and everything. I heard him at the Trop, which, yeah.
I can't imagine. Like
which
when you
was just
when you have the opportunity,
crazy.
take it. Like you're gonna go. You're gonna go. And did you know because you were more of a regular actor out there, were you able to get in the side door to see the show?
On
Or did
occasion.
you have to? I was gonna say because
Yeah,
imagine that get pretty expensive.
Oh yeah, that thing. Oh no. That was always kind of a cool part, where you would, a bunch of you, you'd have an opportunity to go.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a table. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And
So cool.
security, pit bosses, the mutual respect from everybody. Whether you're a musician, you're a dancer, you're a pit boss, you're security, whatever it is, everybody's pretty much on the same page, and you had to be back then.
Yeah. You're part of the team
Because of those
making it
guys.
happen.
That we spoke
Yeah.
of earlier.
You can spot a tourist from a mile away, right?
And
And the mobsters.
it was a wonderful experience. Now, just those ins and outs, and then being able to stay there for a little while, and worked, was able to pay rent, but that was pretty much it.
Did
Yeah.
you have?
And I did all that.
Where did you live out there?
So-
Where did you live in Vegas? I've been to Vegas twice. I know all about it. So
He
just
knows
tell me.
that he's an expert.
I'm an expert. No. Did you live like kind of close? I mean,
I was
the
on the strip,
oh, okay.
and I rented a room at a motel.
Oh, nice. That's
That
it.
was
Standard
that
fare.
was my place, and it was a deal. I wasn't like buying property.
right.
And I wasn't
right.
really thinking about like actually having an apartment. Not initially, because I was used to
Yeah.
hotel rooms.
Yeah. How long did you live there?
Well, that would be probably. I did out my waiting period, the union, played some gigs, and then I was thinking about if I would be, but I don't know. Things were starting to change then. Some of the lounges were closing. We're now we're moving into the Howard Hughes era, and a lot of things changed there. Some of it was pretty rough
Elvis.
because a lot of bands weren't working. They didn't have the rooms anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of lounges were closing down. So that was a lot of bands. When you had 4 or 5 bands playing in a lounge, on a
that's a
regular
lot.
basis, that's a lot of musicians. So that was a little scary. So I said, let's see. It gets hot out here. And you can imagine what it's like now. It's dangerously hot
imagine,
out
yeah.
there. But so it's a little cooler in Florida. And I had been in and out of Florida a lot in my formative years.
Mm-hmm.
And touring and traveling and going in there and going out and all that. So then I decided to move there. And then I actually moved there. I moved
Yeah.
to Florida, and that was home for, I would say, about 8 years, until it was time to think about something else. Because the touring because that's the only way. I just had to be ready to make a move
Yeah.
at any point.
Since you were
Rough.
18, 19 years
Right.
old,
Oh, yeah.
you were ready to go.
And
At any time, like,
And
hey,
at a
the
certain point, you got to
opportunity
think
knocks,
to
let's
yourself,
go.
like, hey, if I'm going to have any kids or have a
that's
wife,
the
and,
lifestyle.
That's it.
a wife or any sort of normalcy,
It,
you got to start thinking about that kind of
it
stuff.
can be, yeah.
So you
when
had
you're a road dog and all that.
Yeah.
But then that was it. It was, to Florida. I was doing a bunch of work there. And then I came north. I was doing a couple things in Philly And then I was at the host farm, and I met the wife. We get married. Well, we weren't married then. I just said, "Hey, you want to go to Florida?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." So, so off to Florida and doing some work and some tours, some different things there. But that was home base, and that was what I did. And I'd say at least 50% of my work during those whatever 7, 8 years, yeah, at least, was a lot of it was in Florida.
How
A lot
about
of it was touring around Florida.
Yeah.
I was getting dizzy going around the state of Florida. And that was, again, the good fortune, the blessings in my life. Because I was just a regular guy with a passion to play his drums.
Yeah.
And somehow that worked out. And again, that was a period of time when you could do that and make a living. Jim Miller and I were just talking about that not too long ago, bass player with Third Stream. And he said, Johnny, we're just so fortunate at the time period that we came up in. That we could get out there and we could, ply our craft.
You mean the Jim Miller?
That's Jim Miller.
Oh boy. Let's talk about
have
Third
them all.
Stream, because
Well, that's where everything changed.
That's
the
it.
Florida thing.
Yeah.
There was different issues there.
Okay.
Some things that I wanted for maybe steady gigs, so I wouldn't have to be on the road and be away from the family, which
Yeah.
was my concern. Okay, so the wife and I talked. We did blah blah blah. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
We had different options, but we didn't want metros. How about something simple? And we end up with well, how about Lancaster?
Where you grew up, yeah. You
Gee,
were born here. You're like,
we
okay.
met here. It was just
know
one
the
of
area.
one of
For
those
sure.
situations where
Yeah.
like you want to raise a family and all the rest of it. And what was another blessing, another good fortune, was I was on an extended gig in '77. I was off the road. It was a music director. There was good friends. We were all friends. And the wife was pregnant. And he got this house gig in Key West, Florida. And he said, "You want to do it?" And I went like, "Well, sure." He said, "Yeah, it'd be good for Melba. She'll be my wife. She'll just be able to chill. Doesn't have to worry about packing bags or anything." And it was a beautiful experience. It was incredible, and great music, great acts. I was with a guy named Mark Sims, Marco. He was a phenomenal performer, kind of like a Tom Jones kind of guy.
Okay.
Real good charts, and all of it was really cool. Great time, man. I was there for a year. Didn't really have any expenses, so the bank was fat. So we went back to Orlando, which had been home, and trying to figure out what we're going to do next. And that's when we decided to come to Lancaster. And I wanted to get off the road. It was going to be a lifestyle change
Yeah.
for me. And I didn't want to do the pop thing anymore, the show busy thing, the show bands and all that kind of. I was done. I was burnt out.
Well,
So
how
I
old
wanted
are you
to
at
play
this time?
jazz. I wanted to play jazz.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, you left when you're 19. Now, how old are you when you finally come back?
I think we were here. I was in my middle 30s. I was like 36.
You've been doing that
37.
for a long time,
Yeah.
man.
And
No wonder.
so
Ready to switch it up.
we come here, and what I'm looking forward to, and something. And remember, I did a talk on that, the last shop talks. When are you getting a real job? And that was kind of a running joke with my father and I, because he knew the racket.
Yeah.
It was tough, but he was proud of me. I did okay, and but what are you going to do now? Time for a real job.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what was happening. That whatever I'm going to do here, I'm probably going to do some music, but I'm not going to do that thing anymore. I was tired. I was tired of it.
Yeah.
I played the same songs, hundreds of times. I just couldn't. So I wanted to play jazz, and that was a passion. It was in there all the time. And in Florida, I had played quite a bit of jazz with some great artists down there. So I was getting a good taste and getting
Okay,
to work out.
okay.
So I was cool in that regard. But what am I going to do? Oh, well, we'll see. So end up getting a suit to do interviews for job interviews at Devano's Menswear, talking with the manager there. And he said, "Hey, you're a nice guy, man. We're looking for somebody here. How'd you like to sell some suits? And that was Devano's at Park City. And that's where that started, where I'm in there selling suits and family's good. Everything was somewhat normal. I wasn't worried too much because I had made money before I came off the road. So, I had a little cushion and I felt really cool. And I just was chilled. I chilled maybe 6 months or so. There were a couple of people that knew I was in the area. And then finally I got a call from a leader, and he was going out doing some military bases, and they were great jobs. And so I did that. So then all of a sudden there's a little more action. I sat in at the Travel Lodge, the lounge that was down in the basement out on Columbia Avenue. Met
a lot about that.
Dave Lasurchek from Lebanon, and sat in and played, and we became fast friends. And then shortly thereafter, he called me to fill in on a gig that he couldn't make in Harrisburg, a jazz gig. Okay. And I was like thrilled. Yeah, sure, I'll do it, because the players were real good. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did. I went up, I played the gig, and wouldn't you know it, Third Stream walked in the door.
Boom. You knew Third Stream? Didn't know who they were?
Oh, I knew who they were.
That's what I wondered. But you didn't know them personally, but you knew who they were.
No. And so that was the beginning of that, because they were looking to replace their drummer at that point, and they were hot. They had a record album just been released. It was doing well. The band had a lot of work, a lot of gigs, colleges, concerts, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they needed you.
And anyway, went to Tom Stroman's house and ran through some charts, and everything seemed to go okay. By then I had a pretty good time feel, so that was important, of course, as it always is. My interaction with Jim Miller, the bassist, and everything, it was just right from the downbeat. It was very cool. And they went away, they talked, they came back and offered me the job.
Nice.
And I said, well, I'll go home and talk to the wife. I'll call you in the morning. And I knew I wanted the job because they were the premier jazz ensemble in Central PA.
Yeah.
Why would I not?
Right. If
that's where you want to play jazz.
You want to play jazz, and you want to live in Lancaster.
Okay.
It's like you got the opportunity to play with the premier jazz group in Lancaster. Yeah.
And then Rudolph is in town. He's in Harrisburg. So through the 80s, between Third Stream and Mr. Steve Rudolph, I was working 6 nights a week, 6 days a week. I started at Drums Etc. with Rick Hamilton in 1985 when the shop opened.
And was that enough for you?
And at that point, the way we were able to manage the life and the band was doing well, we earned a good living. We didn't work cheap. There's Jim Miller again. Because
I have my flashcards here.
Yeah, let's talk about your flashcards.
They're the best. They're the best
Shawn,
guys.
I made these.
At one point, there was some sort of promotion. Tell us the story of this. How does this exist, John? Someone made this?
I
Is
know.
This for a flyer?
I know what this is from.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it's from a poster.
Yeah, it's from a poster.
Third Stream was playing somewhere.
That probably was. It might have been something, not sure if I got that, like a generic poster.
Yeah.
Third Stream with us together with our instruments, and then the individual heads, and then an open area where we could fill in where we were appearing.
Exactly. So you probably had a number of these made up, and it was a really nice job. So 2 of these had come up, and John had put it up on the bulletin board at the old shop. And once the date was over, I'm like, I can't throw this thing away.
So you kept it.
Well, sure, you're allowed.
I was like, you know what I mean? It's such a nice. It was a really done. And I like the drawings of the guys. Yeah. So I cut it out just for like shits and gigs, and then like to mess with John, like, months later I would just randomly pull them out, like, oh, here's my flashcards of the Third Stream. And then of course another one popped up, and I had to do the same
thing
because I needed doubles.
You got doubles
because I needed doubles of it, and I kept them all these years because I thought it was so cool.
You've got to. I apologize for anyone who's just listening to this podcast, but Shawn, you have to hold those up so people can see if people are watching.
We'll talk about the different guys in the band.
Yeah. So put up Peifer. Yeah. Put up John Peifer first. That should adjust eventually.
Back in the day.
Keep going. Keep going. Come on. It'll adjust.
I'll put my hand
Put your hand
behind
behind it. Yeah. Something. There it
There it is,
goes.
okay.
There he is, John Peifer.
There it
John
is.
Peifer on
Still looks
drums.
the same,
Still looks. He's wearing the same glasses.
so we know him.
No.
Now we're talking about.
All right. Who's next?
The bass player.
Oh, sure,
Miller.
we can go there.
Yeah. Let's go there.
Jim Miller,
Jim Miller, the bass player.
absolutely one of the greatest bass players I've ever worked with, for sure. And electric, acoustic, a well-trained individual, had many opportunities in his career to be able to connect with some of the greats, and he really grabbed a hold of it and ran with it, for sure, because he is outstanding musician, beautiful human being. Not quite sure how many years, but he was bass instructor at Lebanon Valley College for a
Okay,
couple
cool.
decades, easily.
Nice.
And he changed a lot of people, and encouraged
Absolutely.
them and put them out in the world. A lot of the bass players that are out doing important things now. Like Mike Whitrin was a good bass player. It was Lebanon Valley, and then he was American Music Theater, and now he's with Gabe Stasnik with that
yeah.
with the Max Impact Band with the Air
Cool.
Force.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So all just amazing people, and Jim was instrumental. And then Professor Stroman, Tom Stroman, probably one of the best, multi-reed players ever. Many, many years at Lebanon Valley. He's a graduate of Lebanon Valley College, professor there for a long time, many, many years, retired now. There's something, I have a story like back in the day, like college. And there were some great artists that came in to play with the jazz band at Lebanon Valley, which was a really great jazz band.
Okay.
And so they really enjoyed working with those young musicians. And then some of those guys, those New York guys, noticed how exceptional Tom Stroman was. And he was offered some positions in New York, even, where he could have walked right into them. But he decided not to. He decided he was going to stay here in his hometown, Lebanon, and be able to teach and be an asset to his community, or however you want to put it, because he's just that kind of a man.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what he decided to do. And that's one of the stories about Tommy, because he could have gone out there and I mean, he's done very well. He's very highly regarded in all those circles. But I'm talking about, being one of them superstars in the Big Apple.
And now we have Easton, Jim Easton, and before you talk about Jim, I got to know Jim because he taught guitar, drums, etc. for not too long. But
Jim taught at drums, etc.
Jim was a guitar teacher at drums, etc. for a little bit, if you remember that.
Okay.
So I got to know him there, and I remember Dan even going in, Dan Van Valkenburg,
Yeah.
taking lessons with him because of how
Yep.
great Jim
Even our
Easton
teachers
is.
at the time
Yeah.
took with him.
So awesome guy. So talk about Jim for a little bit.
Yeah, well, Jimmy is, a Harrisburg guy. And I never knew him before I met him with the band. And I guess when I started with Third Stream, Phil DeAngelis was the guitarist, who was the main guy. He was on the first album and all that with the band. Excellent guitarist. Studied in Philly with Dennis Sandoli. So, Phil is pretty knowledgeable cat, pretty good guitar player. But he was making plans to move on with his life. Ended up becoming very successful in real estate out west and all that. But he was on the band and doing his goodbyes to the community, everybody knew him and everything. So that went on for several months. And then we had to replace him, and it was Easton, came in and played the stuff. And Jim had experience with some great teachers, and he continued to study even during that period of time. And because Jim was a little younger than the rest of us. And that was that. There it is.
Bam.
Whatever,
That's it.
43 years.
Yeah,
And
Central
for us
Pennsylvania
too.
Music Hall of Famers, I
That
should
is
mention.
true.
Oh yeah, that's
Recently
true.
inducted. Not that awards mean everything, but
Right.
that's cool to be recognized like that.
Oh yeah,
And
for
I've
sure.
had the opportunity to see Third Stream play, and I mean, just talk about class and the John is just an incredible drummer, and I've seen not only Third Stream play, but John doing his gigs without Third Stream, the John Peifer Quartet. I remember coming out to different places and seeing you play up there at Boobs and out there at downtown here at the Belvedere. Yeah, I've seen you play multiple times, and just getting that appreciation of jazz,
Oh, yeah.
And I'm in no way like a jazz aficionado or anything, but I've gained a lot of that appreciation and respect from for jazz from John and his playing and his ability and just everything else. So
Yeah, thanks, man.
yeah, man.
Yeah,
It's
big
awesome.
time, big time. In fact, actually, we mentioned people. If you're checking this out on YouTube, or go check out our YouTube page, Drums Etc's YouTube page. We have the shop talk session from last year, which was when you getting a real job, which you talked about, like with your dad, that conversation and that sort of time of like coming in off the road, which is a lot of great insight in there. But also this year, you're also going to be speaking on the early days of jazz. Mm-hmm. That history thing of how that was developed and how, instrumental that was for music in our country as a whole, not just the jazz thing, but it's such an impact that has. So yeah, that's going to be happening. That's going to be happening the 5th, August 5th, 2023, August 5th, 2023. And then I'll probably record all of them again this year and put it up for people who don't check it out. That's something, if you guys are catching this beforehand, I'll probably have this edited and out before then, so people can mark their calendars to check that out. But that's going to be a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to get your perspective
that's
on stuff too. And
wonderful what you're doing.
It's wonderful
And
what
for
you're doing because you have all of this knowledge, this wealth of information, and a lifetime of experience. And just hearing you, like, you know how to talk, you know how to explain things, you know how to paint a picture, and it's like getting it out there, getting you on here.
That's it. That's all it is.
It's got to live in infamy,
That's what this is about,
It's
man.
awesome.
Well, the community, the information, and everything, and what you guys are doing here is just absolutely wonderful for the drumming community, the community at large, and anybody that's interested in anything to do with the arts. But specifically, we talk about drums, and then all the other people that come in that are talking about a lot more than just drums.
Yep.
And you've had that. Those offerings here are pretty special because you're getting some good information. People can talk to you. You can converse and get up a little bit more one-on-one. I like that. And you've had some wonderful people. The young lady that you had here with that, her one lecture. I'm sorry, the name escapes me.
Athena from Pop Right Music in the Cadence Lab. She talked about how to actually make money with your music.
Yeah.
Gave
That was
a
incredible.
lot of insight.
Yeah.
That's also on our YouTube. Check it out.
Yeah, I see
Absolutely.
those reels pop up all the time, and I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. It's awesome seeing John pop up too. I'm like, and I'm just listening to what he's saying, and I'm like, oh my god, this is great. Like, yeah, I know him. I know that guy.
No, but it is a priority of mine and ours as a shop to share. It's
That's
like
it, brother.
Shawn's put it in a great way a few episodes ago, and he's just like, it's not some exclusive club here. There's no, like, we're all figuring this stuff out. We're at different points in our journey, and us as a drum shop, the value of a drum shop is not in my brain. It's not just what I know. It's the people that I know and what I've learned from them and what I've heard from them. And, I'll run this by this person. This person's connected to that person. And it's just one big interconnecting web of drummers as a resource and an incredible community. All that we're doing is trying to amplify that and give that back, not in a feedback loop, but trying to reach those points in the web that aren't directly connected. And that's what the shop talks about. That's what this is about. That's why we have guests like you on that have knowledge. Because
Sit underneath the learning tree here.
That's it. And we get a front
it.
row seat, so it's the absolute best. But that's really the goal of what's going on here,
Outstanding.
It's not a big secret. We're not and we sell stuff, and obviously if we make money off of it, no. But we're trying to educate primarily and give. That's really what we're trying to do. If you guys want to support us as a drum shop, thank you. Because it's the three of us, me, Shawn, and Goody here, and the teachers, of course. But that's secondary to what we're really trying to do. So,
Well put.
all right,
Yeah,
man.
bud.
John,
Yes.
do you have anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't touched on? I know we just briefly went over your entire life story and just skipped around and jumped around as we've interrupted you.
I do that.
But we're going to have you back. We're going to do this constantly. We have this format, which is very much more structured, but then we'll do pop-in episodes. So at some point, we'll definitely
Sure.
at
The
least
pop
do
in
that.
is just
Sure,
when
it'd
we
be
come
great.
up here and just
What's on your mind?
talk, and
Yeah.
just like we're doing at the front counter. Anytime we're sitting down there talking at the front counter, we should just go, hold it, let's go upstairs and put this on camera. That's what
it.
it is.
That's
Wow,
all it is.
bud.
That's as simple as
You
it is.
know?
But is there anything else you want to talk about? I know we talk big picture, not even just drumming, about what's going on in the world and this and that, and just staying grounded with the drums. And
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
That's the good stuff, And there was quite a bit covered. We kind of resolved to a place, and I'm at this point. What really means a lot to me is, first off, being here with you guys, being associated with drums, etc., having an opportunity to teach, drums and maybe a little bit about life and all that, because I'm an old guy. And that's pretty much what's really floating my boat now. I'm just really,
Giving back.
I'm honored. Yeah, the give back.
Giving it back.
But
Yeah.
I feel I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I'm sitting here now where I still drum here and there. I play with the third stream is primarily all I'm doing now, but like I was saying, the teaching means a lot to me, and other than that, we'll see what the future brings. That's
like
the
it.
bottom line. We'll see what happens. I'd like to, as I've said to you before, with some of these jazz things, I'd like to maybe delve a little deeper into that in maybe a clinic format.
That would be cool.
That, just simple, we just have to, say, well, when are we going to do it? That thing. And you guys are
Yep.
great, for sure. But that's pretty much where it's at with me, resolving to this place. And it's been an amazing journey. And I'm at that place now where, I'm a very blessed human, because I didn't have a clue.
None of us do.
I started out with this thing, and then somehow I was given that opportunity. Like I said earlier, Jim Miller and I talked about it, that we came up at a time when you could actually do that. It's a little bit harder today to go make a living. I made a living. I got paid regularly,
Yeah.
and it's just, finding your way, and then you're involved, you meet the people, the networking. Back then, just meeting the people, the club owners and the agents, and beating the streets, all the musicians, because that's how it worked. Today, you still have to do that. That's still part of the drill if you're serious about it. But now with the media, all that, and what you can do in that regard to make contact, and that's what it's turned into. Because my old line that when it stirred up, what's his face, from Rascal Flatts, the drummer from Nashville,
Yeah.
Jim
Jim Riley.
yeah, nice man. God, what a really
You
nice
met him.
man.
So let me back up and explain
Yeah.
this. We recorded the Shop Talk sessions, and then I'll go through and I'll take clips and clip it out to put reels up, you know what I mean, to reach more people and to try to get. And usually I try to get a complete thought, but sometimes I'll miss the beginning or the end that has a little bit of context to it. And sometimes people get real mad about that. I do
Right.
my best. But what was the exact thing that you said, and then he commented on it?
Yeah, well, my comment would have been, let's see, what did I actually say? We're probably going with that back in the day, I think. Again,
Yeah.
ding, ding.
Yeah.
That there was not as many musicians, qualified guys, to go out and get to work. Okay? But there was lots of work. There were lots of venues. And if you were willing to pack a bag or whatever, you were going to be able to go out and actually make a living. Okay? Today, it's a little bit different. And what I said was that there's such an abundance of talented musicians, well-trained musicians, and not as many places to play, which is pretty much the way it is. There's places to go and play and do this and do that and open mics and jams and all the rest of it. But it's pretty tough. It's very competitive. It's way over the top. It's very competitive. Mm-hmm. So you're in that place, and I'm stating this, and then, of course, Jim says about, well, hey, Nashville, plenty of places to play. Musicians are playing everywhere.
I couldn't disagree more.
And then somebody sounded him out about that. Yeah, you're in Nashville, man. Of course, it's Music City.
Right.
It's all that. But also the fact of the matter is...
And he's well connected.
He's super connected. He's in the studios. He's really good.
Yeah, I know.
He's a tremendous drummer.
I know.
And so when I had the opportunity to run some of this by him when I met, because he was doing a clinic down at the Delaware Drum Show.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm going down, so I'm going to see him, and I'm going to get
He's like, send me the clip. I want to know exactly what he said.
and all that, just to be able to, and we got along. It was great. He says, I see what you, John, and everything. So we were buddies then, and it was the idea of...
Let's talk about this.
The fact of the matter is...
Interesting.
Who's making a living?
Right.
And that kind of thing was what I was talking about. And it's a tough go in these times. You just got to work hard. That's it. The bottom line, that's it. You got to have your tools in place, and you got to be able to work hard, real hard, as it is with anything that anybody has to do in these times. The disciplines are required. You've got to have some information, and then you got to get to work, and that's nonstop. That's that thing.
Absolutely.
For sure. But
well, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that was really great.
That's good.
Man.
I didn't realize
Nice
that
guy.
He went down there, yeah.
I remember the thread happening and people coming to John's defense like, dude, you're in Music City, whatever else. Like, you're taking it out of context here. It's like, yeah, sure, there's places to play down there, and there's still places to play everywhere. But what John's saying is there's a lot more. It's almost like what Todd Zuckerman said, back in the day. 100 bands sold millions of records. Now millions of bands and artists sell hundreds of records. So it's that same thing.
One.
I know it's a good one. Todd Zuckerman said that.
Yeah, he's
but
great.
that's great. That's what John was saying. It's like, no, I'm not saying there's nowhere to play.
Yeah.
It's just it's a lot more competitive now, and there's fewer places to play. Yeah. You would stay at the Ramada Inn you could go to the Poconos and stay there a week. You'd have a week there playing, and the same thing out in Vegas and all these different places, would host a band for a full week. Now you don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well,
Different times, but
I'm glad you're able to set the record straight.
Yeah.
Not only on drum key, but with the man himself.
That's great. I didn't hear about that.
Well,
I didn't hear
who it is.
that you would come down and confront
Oh
him.
yeah, that was
that's
boy.
great,
The show was incredible.
Nice. Drumming community.
His clinic was the drumming community. It was crazy because everybody was getting along well, but you couldn't walk.
Yeah.
But drummers
We're going next.
kind of coordinated individuals, and everybody's just kind of moving and grooving and everything. It was crazy, and with Bernard Purdy's there. He's there every year. Just great people. that come in, and who else was there? Liberty DeVito was there signing his book. His book is incredible. You know, all that great stuff is happening there where you can hang out with the guys, and they're more than willing. And Jim was great. And
Dennis Chambers was there, right?
huh?
Wasn't Dennis Chambers
Yeah,
there?
Dennis walked in.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a big deal because nobody was expecting that. And he comes in the front door, and it just went through the crowd. Chambers, Dennis Chambers is here. You know, and he's just kind of walking through the crowd and went up to the consignment on the stage and getting ready for the guy that did the bottom thing. Whew. He was incredible. Yeah, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
I forget it too. But he
Put a link at the bottom.
Yeah, no, he was gonna. I talked to him. He was a potential. It couldn't work out scheduling wise. A potential for the shop talks last year.
Ah, nice.
No, this cat was something else,
Yeah.
as they all were. There
Yeah,
was just
there
all that stuff. A lot of great guys in there that have their little sideline with their drums and some of the vintage stuff, and just great people to talk with and mainly network with. You know, put that thing together. You know, meet the people, exchange cards. You know, or number, whatever they do with the tech thing now. I'm still old school. I like a business card.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Yeah.
and that was what was really nice. It's just a little crowded.
That's
Just
a
a
good
little
sign.
crowd.
That's
Oh,
a
it's a
good
good
sign.
sign. So yeah, they were talking. A couple of the guys were talking about the venue, and maybe they
it's good,
might
though.
have to
Drumming community, baby.
enlarge, go to another venue because they've
Good
been there
stuff.
since they started back up, and it's a good one there in Delaware. Very
cool.
nice, very
Hey,
nice.
maybe we'll have a drums etc. drum show. What do you think about that? Sean?
Every day is a drums etc. drum show, dude.
It kind of is. It is here.
Absolutely.
It really
Something
is.
a
I
little
agree
more
with that,
substantial.
for sure.
Maybe.
You
we'll
can
do
come in
something
and
like that.
certainly put
That's
that
it.
together in place here.
Oh yeah, maybe. Now my wheels are spinning. All right,
There he goes.
let's pause it there, and of course, John, we'll have you back. We'll talk. We'll gab more in the shop, but hopefully we can get you back on
I
the
hope so.
podcast
I'd-
at some point. This
I'd
is
love
great.
to, man.
This is
I'd
awesome.
love to.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
All right,
My
thank
pleasure.
you everyone who's been tuning in, who's made it to the end here, the full journey. If you have any further questions for us, for John, if you have any suggestions for different topics for the segments or suggestions for different segments altogether, we're constantly reevaluating things. I put out a thing recently saying, "Hey, what do you guys think? What do you want us to talk about more or less? What's the vibe?" We are ready for your feedback. Feel free to reach out in the comments section wherever you're watching or listening to this, or just reach out to Drums Etc. directly. We're on all social media. We're everywhere. You can find us. Just search around Drums Etc. But I believe that's where we're going to end this episode of Drum Key. As always, support your local drum shops. If you don't have one, we'd be happy to adopt you. We'll see you next time.